Chapter 94. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found online can be found here. Gu Jiao was taller than Gu Jinyu. Even though Gu Jinyu was wearing thick-soled embroidered shoes, Gu Jiao could still look down on her oppressively. Gu Jiao said calmly, "If you don't even have this much sincerity, don't try to persuade me to go back." Gu Jinyu's eyes reddened. "If you want to chase me away," Gu Jiao said coldly, "I don't care. Take whatever you want. Just don't bother me." This was the most Gu Jiao had ever said to a stranger. She was only so patient with people she cared about. After that, Gu Jiao used her strength to demonstrate what it meant to treat Gu Jinyu as heir. Gu Jinyu forced herself to burn all the paper money. Until the end, she still couldn't call Gu Sanlang and his wife father and mother in front of Gu Jiao. Gu Jinyu had been kneeling for too long. Her legs were numb. It was the young maid and granny who helped her up. She bowed to Gu Jiao. "I'll leave first. I'll visit you again when I'm free." Not long after she left, little Jing Kong skipped over from another path. "Jiao Jiao." He saw Gu Jinyu not far away and asked curiously, Who are they?" Gu Jiao said, "Strangers." "Oh, strangers?" Then little Jing Kong didn't have to bother about them. "Why are you here?" Gu Jiao asked. Little Jing Kong said, "I went home and you weren't around. Grand-aunt said you came to visit the grave." Little Jing Kong had to do morning classes, practice martial arts, and make trouble for his friends in the village every morning. After making trouble for his friends, he went home and found that Gu Jiao wasn't around. So he asked Grand-aunt where Jiao Jiao went. "Whose grave is this?" Little Jing Kong asked with his eyes wide open. Gu Jiao looked at the two old tombs and said, "My father's and mother's. This is my father and this is my mother." Little Jing Kong put his hands behind his back, tilted his head, and thought for a while. If they are Jiao Jiao's parents, then they are also Jing Kong's parents. Little Jing Kong said as he knelt down and kowtowed to Gu Sanlang and Su Shur. He kowtowed especially sincerely. His head was knocked into the ground, and he even called out for his parents. His voice was childish, but his little face was solemn. His little body knelt in front of the desolate grave, and people couldn't help but tear up. An adopted child could behave like this, but as her own biological child, she could not even call them father and mother. Gu Jinyu felt a little stifled in her heart, as if she had been slapped in the face. "Miss, are you all right?" The young maid sensed that something was amiss with Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu closed his eyes. "I'm fine. Let's go home." "Yes." Gu Jinyu and the others got on the carriage and returned to the mansion. On the other hand, Gu Jiao and little Jing Kong walked back together after clearing the weeds on the grave. "Jiao Jiao, have you recovered from your illness?" Little Jing Kong held Gu Jiao's hand and asked. "Yes, I'm fine." Gu Jiao nodded. Her fever had subsided, which was good news for her. As for the scab on her wound, it was a common occurrence, so she didn't take it to heart. Little Jing Kong heard Gu Jiao say that she was fine, so he believed that she was really fine. He cheered excitedly. "I just talked to my parents." "Oh, what did you say?" When Gu Jiao was weeding, she did hear the little guy mumbling, but she didn't know what he was mumbling about. Little Jing Kong raised his chin and said proudly, "I asked my parents to bless Jiao Jiao so that she won't fall ill again. My parents must have heard it, so they let Jiao Jiao recover from her illness." Gu Jiao thought, "Is that possible?" Little Jing Kong firmly believed that Gu Sanlang and his wife had shown up in the netherworld. Obviously, he was the one who made them show up, so it was actually his effort, not his bad brother-in-law who brought the medicine back. He could be said to be a little monk who was constantly fighting with his brother-in-law for favor. After Gu Jinyu left the village, she hurried back to the villa. She had just reached the town when she realized that something was missing. "Stop," she ordered. The coachman stopped the carriage by the street. Huang Zhong rode on the horse and asked, "Miss, what happened?" Gu Jinyu rummaged through her sleeves and pursed carefully and frowned. I dropped something. What did you drop? Huang Zhong asked. A letter, Gu Jinyu said. Then I'll ask them to come over and help you look for it. Huang Zhong called the young servant girl and Granny from the carriage behind over and helped Gu Jinyu search through the carriage. In the end, they searched through the cabinets and chests, but could not find what Gu Jinyu had lost. Is it a very important letter? Huang Zhong asked. Yes. Gu Jinyu nodded. It was a letter that Consort Shu had written to her. There was a question in it. It was originally meant for the princes, but Consort Shu's son, the fifth prince, could not solve it. So he sent a letter to Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu was exceptionally smart, much better than the fifth prince's study companions. Since young, she had always secretly solved the fifth prince's questions and said that the fifth prince had done it himself. The emperor did not know the truth and really thought that the fifth prince was smarter than the other princes. The emperor doted on Consort Shu, and it had something to do with the fifth prince. Hence, Consort Shu especially valued Gu Jinyu. The question this time was set by the emperor himself. It was said that it had stumped all the princes. Everyone in the country of Zhao knew that their emperor did not like poetry and eight-legged prose. He loved to study arithmetic and astronomy. In the letter, Consort Shu had repeatedly instructed Gu Jinyu to help the fifth prince solve the question, and she had to do it quickly. Whoever could solve this problem first would be able to please His Majesty. Gu Jinyu carried the question with her every day. Whenever she was free, she would solve it. But the question set by the emperor was too difficult. She had racked her brains, and many geniuses had barely solved half of it. But even if it was only half, she had only managed to solve it after a huge amount of calculation. Today, she had lost the result of all her hard work. Gu Jinyu felt suffocated. She was afraid that she would go crazy if she had to calculate it from the beginning again. Gu Jinyu pressed her chest and said, "Could it have been left in the village? I was kneeling there and burning paper money, just now. It might have fallen out of my sleeve at that time." Little Jing Kong held Jiao Jiao's hand and skipped home. Gu Jiao went to cook while he went to feed the chicks, shovel the chicken droppings, and clean up the chicken coop. However, before he even started, he discovered something. He looked down at something stuck to his heel and blinked strangely. He bent down to pick it up. It was a small folded envelope. There was no name on the envelope. He opened the envelope and took out the letter inside. There was still no name or signature on the letter. It was a large piece of white paper filled with numbers. This seems to be a question. Little Jing Kong looked confused. This was a field that he had never studied before, so he did not know how to solve it. More importantly, why did it appear at his feet? He was very sure that his shoes were clean before he went out. Could it be, Father and Mother gave it to me? The more Little Jing Kong thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. Father and Mother must have heard his prayer and responded to him. He thought for a moment, put the letter into his pocket, and ran into the kitchen. He squatted down and looked at the soles of Gu Jiao's shoes. Gu Jiao was confused by his look. "What are you looking at?" Little Jing Kong shook his head like a rattle drum. "Nothing. Nothing." Father and Mother did not leave a letter for Jiao Jiao. They only left a letter for him. Jiao Jiao did not talk to Father and Mother just now. He was the only one who spoke. Little Jing Kong was more certain that this letter was written to him by Father and Mother in the netherworld. But because he did not tell Father and Mother about his learning level, Father and Mother overestimated his ability. In order not to disappoint Father and Mother, Little Jing Kong decided to ask for help. Little Jing Kong returned to the kitchen with a pen and paper. "Jiao Jiao, Jiao Jiao, I don't know how to solve this question." When Little Jing Kong went down the mountain, he brought with him a lot of Buddhist scriptures and some strange questions that were said to be set by his master. His master did not solve some of the questions, but he did not solve some of the questions. When Gu Jiao saw this question, she did not think much about it. She just thought that it was a question left by his master. There was crispy meat in the pot. The temperature of the oil was just right. It could not be too tender or too deep fried. Gu Jiao took some time to solve the question for him. Then, she took out the crispy meat that was fried until it was golden brown. The whole process took less than a minute. Little Jing Kong took the question that he solved and went to Gu Sanlang and his wife's grave. Little Jing Kong was an honest child. He did not hide the fact that he asked Gu Jiao. At the same time, he also recited the Buddhist scriptures that he had learned to Gu Sanlang and his wife. He hoped that they could come up with a question from these scriptures the next time they tested him. Father and Mother, have a good rest. I'll leave first. I'll come and see you another day. Little Jing Kong placed the question that he solved in front of the grave. To prevent it from being blown away by the wind, he even found a small stone to press it down. Gu Jinyu and the rest arrived at the entrance of the village. Miss, wait in the horse carriage. We'll go and look for it, the elderly maid said to Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu's body was precious. It was best that she did not appear in such a lowly place frequently. Gu Jinyu thought about it and did not refuse. The elderly maid, the young maid, Huang Zhong, and the rest went along the road to look for it. You guys look here. Lu, and I will go to the grave to take a look. After the elderly maid finished speaking, she brought the young maid to Gu Sanlang and his wife's grave. The young maid suddenly pointed at a stone on the ground. Elderly maid, look, there's something under the stone. The elderly maid's eyes lit up. She hurried forward to remove the stone, only to find that there was only a pile of burning ashes and a piece of paper money that was not completely burned under the stone. That's right. On the way back, little Jing Kong suddenly remembered something. The paper money for his parents had to be burned before they could receive it. It was the same for the question. Hence, he turned back and burned the question that he had solved. This way, his parents could receive it. I'm really a clever little devil. Digression. Little Jing Kong. Quick, praise me. Praise me. Praise me. Oh, asterisk. Oh, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find online are available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/115580472. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 95. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. The servant girl and the nanny brought the ashes back to Gu Jinyu with a handkerchief. Gu Jinyu could see some handwriting on the ashes, but it was just a little. It was just enough for her to recognize that it was her question, but she couldn't figure out the complete solution. Gu Jinyu certainly wouldn't guess that little Jing Kong had burned it all. She even thought that she had accidentally left the paper in the paper money, causing it to be burned along with the paper money. Her heart ached at the thought of this. She wanted to vomit blood and faint on the spot. It was still early after dinner. Gu Jiao planned to take a walk on the mountain she bought. She had been going up the mountain recently when she had nothing to do. Besides picking herbs and mushrooms, she also memorized the topography of the entire mountain. Now, she only needed a little more information to construct a topographic map of the entire mountain. Little Jing Kong heard that she was going up the mountain. He tilted his head and asked her, "Can I go with Jiao Jiao?" Gu Jiao thought for a while and said, "Do you want to go back and see your master and senior brothers?" "Mainly, I want to stay with you. But that's fine too." Little Jing Kong jumped down from the stool and said to Gu Jiao, "Then I'll go and see them." The place they were going to this time was quite close to the temple. It was actually on the way. Gu Jiao carried a small basket on her back. Little Jing Kong looked envious, so Gu Jiao made him a small basket too. The small basket contained the gifts he brought for his friends. There were vegetarian meatballs, fried by Gu Jiao. There was osmanthus cake, bought by Gu Jiao. There were wild fruits, picked by Gu Jiao. Little Jing Kong carried the same small basket as Gu Jiao's and was very proud. He went to his grandmother's house to show off, then went next door to show off in front of Xuan Ningxiang and Go Hua. Then the siblings went up the mountain. Little Jing Kong might be young and small, but he couldn't endure more hardship than most children. He had to walk such a long way to the other side of the mountain, but he still persisted. On the way up the mountain, he kept running forward with Gu Jiao following behind him unhurriedly. When they were halfway up the mountain, he finally ran out of energy and collapsed on the steps like a little salted fish. Gu Jiao carried little salted fish Jing Kong up the mountain. At the entrance of the temple, little Jing Kong, who had recovered his strength, waved at Gu Jiao. "Jiao Jiao, go ahead. I'll look for Jing Fan, Jing Xin, and Jing Sha myself." "Yes." Gu Jiao watched little Jing Kong enter the temple and greet a monk warmly. He even called him senior brother Jingchen. Only then did she feel relieved and went to measure her own mountain. She spent a lot of money to buy this mountain, but the more she went there, the more Gu Jiao felt that it was worth it. There were so many wild herbs and beasts all over the mountain, and they all belonged to her. She was probably lucky today. She dug up 2 ginseng along the way. They were not very big ginseng, but they were enough to make chicken soup. For some reason, Gu Jiao suddenly remembered the trap she set in the forest. However, no one should be so unlucky this time. Unexpectedly, just as this thought flashed through her mind, there was a movement in the forest. It seemed that something really fell down. Over there was the trap she set. "It can't be so coincidental." Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. "Maybe it was a big worm? A wolf would be fine too." Gu Jiao was full of expectation to harvest her prey, but when she went there, she took a look. This time it was a person again. Gu Jiao was a little confused. She set traps to catch wild beasts. Why was it always a person who fell into her trap? However, this time it didn't seem to be an ordinary person, but a monk. He was wearing a grayish-white monk's robe and had a slender figure. He was holding something in his arms. His wrist bone was exposed outside his sleeves, and it was as white as jade. Perhaps because he heard the movement on the ground, he raised his head, and an unworldly face entered Gu Jiao's line of sight. This monk had a pair of long and narrow peach blossom eyes, and there was a mole under his right eye. She couldn't tell how old he was, but he looked very young. Gu Jiao sighed inwardly. In this world, even monks were so beautiful. Could it be that the monsters in the forest had turned into spirits and came here to charm women like her? Gu Jiao looked at him warily. He curved his thin red lips and smiled. "Young benefactor, can you pull this poor monk up?" His voice was also very pleasant to the ears. There was a kind of ethereal feeling that came from a deity. Gu Jiao thought for a moment, then took out a rope from her basket and pulled him up. Only then did Gu Jiao realize that he was holding a white and tender little rabbit in his arms, and in the trap he had just been in, there was the corpse of a venomous snake lying there. Gu Jiao looked at the poisonous snake, then looked at the little rabbit in his arms. "Did you fall into the trap to save this little rabbit?" He nodded with a smile. His smile was very gentle, but it wasn't the motherly gentleness of Yao Shi. It was a gentleness that made people feel dizzy and blush. Unfortunately, Gu Jiao wasn't shy by nature. Because he was handsome, Gu Jiao looked at him a few more times. However, Gu Jiao's heart was very calm. Gu Jiao heard him say this and said, "You're quite kind," before he could finish his sentence. He saw the other party pull out a dagger and kill the wild rabbit with one slash. Gu Jiao, after the monk killed the rabbit, he asked Gu Jiao for some water and washed the rabbit. Then he started a bonfire and began to roast the rabbit. Gu Jiao was a little confused. Killing and eating meat. Was he a fake monk? "Do you want it?" He cut off the fattest piece of rabbit meat and skewered it with a dagger. He handed it to Gu Jiao. "Everyone who sees it will have a share." "Gu Jiao, shouldn't you be thanking me because I saved you?" Gu Jiao didn't eat much for lunch, so she was a little hungry now. She took the rabbit meat and took a bite. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't delicious either. It was a bit of a waste of food. Ah, I forgot to add salt. The monk patted his head and took out a small bamboo tube from his wide sleeve. He removed the lid and sprinkled salt on the rabbit meat. This should be much more delicious. He cut another piece and handed it to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao took the rabbit meat. With the salt, it indeed tasted much better. She asked, "You saved it just to eat it?" The monk said matter-of-factly, "What else?" Gu Jiao's mouth twitched. "Which monk in the temple is this? Why haven't I seen him before?" The monk pointed at the trap beside them. "Do you eat snake meat? If you want to eat, go and fish it up." Gu Jiao said, "Why don't you fish it up yourself?" The monk sighed. "I'm scared." Gu Jiao said strangely, "You're scared that you'll beat it to death." "I didn't beat it to death." The monk paused and corrected her. "I bit it to death." "Gu Jiao, why did you bite it for no reason?" "It bit me first." The monk said sternly. He pulled up the left side of his trousers, revealing his swollen calf. Gu Jiao was dumbfounded. "A snake bit you, and you bit it back. What kind of operation is this?" The snake probably didn't expect that it would be bitten to death by a human one day. Moreover, you were bitten by a snake like this, and you're still in the mood to eat roasted rabbit? Don't you know that you're going to die soon? The monk seemed to have seen through Gu Jiao's thoughts. He sighed and said, "I know." After saying that, he fell to the ground with a thud. He spat out black blood and lost consciousness. "Gu Jiao, what kind of weird monk is this?" The snake that bit him was a highly venomous, many-banded kite. Fortunately, Gu Jiao had anti-venom for the many-banded kite in her medicine box. The anti-venom was a type of horse serum. It contained foreign proteins and could easily cause allergies. Time was tight, so Gu Jiao gave up on the desensitization injection. She painfully gave him 2 shots of anti-allergy medicine. When the monk woke up, he was no longer on the lawn. He found himself sitting under a big tree. It was raining. He glanced at Gu Jiao beside him and said in a hoarse voice, "Don't you know that you can't hide from the rain under a tree during spring?" Gu Jiao looked at him casually and said, "You can still roast rabbit calmly after being bitten by a snake." "I thought you weren't afraid of death." The monk choked and coughed softly. "I thought that I couldn't live, so I had to die with a full stomach." "Speaking of which, did you save me?" He pulled up his trousers to take a look. The wound was bandaged and the pain was basically gone. The edema was also gone. "You can even cure snake venom. Are you an expert?" he asked strangely. Gu Jiao didn't answer him. She just sat quietly on the side to hide from the rain. Probably feeling that he owed her 2 favors, the monk felt embarrassed. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "Benefactress, what is your surname?" "Gu." Gu Jiao said. She didn't look at him. She kept looking at the rain. The monk smiled and said, "This poor monk knows a little about physiognomy. I can read Benefactress Gu's palm." "No need." Gu Jiao faintly refused. No woman could refuse such a handsome monk. Gu Jiao was the first. The monk couldn't help but be curious. He looked at her a few more times. Gu Jiao had already put on her bamboo hat. He couldn't see her face clearly. He could only see her delicate chin. The monk curled his lips. He was about to withdraw his gaze when he suddenly saw Gu Jiao playing with a bronze token. He raised his eyebrows in confusion and said, "So Mrs. from Marquis Xian Ping's household." "What?" Gu Jiao turned around. The monk's gaze swept over the birthmark on her left cheek. He didn't show any abnormality and said, "The token in your hand." Gu Jiao looked at the token and then looked at him. "You know it?" The monk curled his lips and smiled. He stretched his slender legs and raised an arm behind his head. He leaned against the tree behind him and looked at the heavy rain. "Yes, this poor monk knows it." "Tell me," Gu Jiao said. The monk looked at Gu Jiao playfully. "So you don't know it? Then how did you get this token?" "I picked it up," Gu Jiao said. "Phew." The monk's expression became more playful. His beautiful peach blossom eyes narrowed into 2 crescent moons. It was like the spring water, full of charm. Then your luck is really good. You were able to pick up such a valuable thing. As he said this, He withdrew his gaze from Gu Jiao and continued to look at the heavy rain that would stop at an unknown time. Marquis Xian Ping's household is an aristocratic family with hundreds of years of history. It is a relative of the imperial family. It is a tyrant in the capital. It has produced 3 emperors and an empress. What does benefactor Gu want to hear? Gu Jiao didn't ask him how a monk deep in the mountains could understand the situation in the capital. She only said, "Anything is fine." The monk smiled and said, "Then you want to hear everything." Unfortunately, the matters of Marquis Xian Ping's household can't be finished in 3 days and 3 nights. Does benefactor Gu want to ask about people or interesting things? Gu Jiao thought for a moment. People. Master or servant? Up to you. The monk's smile deepened. You are clearly the one asking for information. How can you ask me? Fine, if you really want to ask about servants, I don't know either. Let's start with Marquis Xian Ping. This Marquis title was inherited from the old Marquis. Marquis Xian Ping is the eldest son of the family and also the son of the first wife. It is only natural for him to inherit the family business. There is nothing to say. He has a younger sister of the first wife and a younger brother born of a concubine. The younger sister is the current empress, and the younger brother is the great general of Wei Yuan. Ah, I forgot to mention. He also married the princess of Xinyang. He and the princess of Xinyang had a son. That was an amazing son. It is a pity that he died young. Just these people. Gu Jiao asked. There are also a few sons of concubines. They are not enough to reach the apex. As the monk spoke, he once again looked at Gu Jiao with a smile. This time, there was a hint of warning in his smile. Girl, if you picked up this token, then so be it. Don't flaunt it everywhere. It will easily attract a fatal disaster. Also, don't get involved with the people of Marquis Xian Ping's household. It will also attract a fatal disaster. When he became serious, even the way he addressed her had changed. Gu Jiao did not pay attention to his warning. She was never a person who would allow others to judge the risks. However, this Marquis Xian Ping's household sounded very powerful. Why would Xiao Lulang have the token of Marquis Xian Ping's household? What was his relationship with Marquis Xian Ping's household? Then, if... Gu Jiao was halfway through her words when she suddenly realized something. Turning her head, she discovered that the monk who was chattering beside her had suddenly disappeared. What was even more bizarre was that Gu Jiao did not know when he left. Gu Jiao had been in this strange world for so long, and this time she had really met an expert. Gu Jiao looked at the place where the monk had just sat. There was a word written with a finger. Xiao. Gu Jiao pondered. Marquis Xian Ping's household is surnamed Xiao. Xiao Liulang's surname was also Xiao. How could it be so coincidental? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642826/115578200. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 96. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. The novel was updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that could not be found on the internet were available here. Not long after the monks left, the rain stopped. Gu Jiao went to the temple to pick up little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong spent a happy and fulfilling day at the temple. To be exact, it was half a day. He met the gentle and considerate senior brother Jingchen, several other senior brothers, the abbot, and his former playmates, Jing Fan, Jing Xin, and Jing Shan. As the abbot and his senior brothers were busy, he spent the most time with the 3 little monks. Since there was no Jing Kong to fight for food, the three little monks were well nourished and were all rounder than before. Little Jing Kong was no longer the little Jing Kong he used to be. He had changed out of his monk robe and was wearing the clothes of a commoner. Little hair also grew on his little bald head. He was actually the youngest among the little monks, but he was the first to speak, and he was the best at it. In the end, even the abbot could not out-talk him. He proudly showed his little face to the little monks. "Do you see little Yiya? Jiao Jiao gave it to me." I see it, Jing Fan said. "I see it too," Jing Xin said. Jing Shan was confused and thought for a while, then said slowly, then, "I see it too." Little Jing Kong was very satisfied. "Will Yiya grow into little Fafa flower?" Jing Fan pointed at his little face and asked. Little Jing Kong paused and shook his head. "I don't think so. They will only grow into kisses and stay on my face forever." "Can they be eaten?" Jing Fan asked. "No," little Jing Kong said. Since they could not grow into beautiful Fafa flower and could not be eaten, the three little monks instantly lost interest in kissing little Yiya. However, there was something else in little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong decisively took out a can of vegetarian meatballs that Gu Jiao had packed for him. After opening the lid, a crisp smell of scallion oil drifted out and almost filled half of the courtyard. The young monks were all stunned. Jing Fan's eyes widened. What smells so good?" The three of them were drooling. Little Jing Kong wanted to eat meat, but he couldn't. Gu Jiao thought of a way to make vegetarian meat with tofu and other ingredients. He could eat whatever his family ate. For example, when his family ate roast duck, he also had roast duck. When his family ate sausage, he also had sausage. When his family ate braised pork, he also had braised pork. Recently, his family had been eating meatballs, so he had his own Jing Kong meatball. Little Jing Kong ate a small meatball in front of his friends. His strength shocked them. The young monks were stunned once again. Why you? Are you eating meat? You're not dizzy anymore? Oh my God, this is too scary. Senior brother, I want to go home. Little Jing Kong was not a mischievous child. After showing off, he confessed the truth about the meatball. It's vegetarian meat. Jiao Jiao said that monks can also eat it. The three young monks were hesitant at first. They were afraid that they would be tricked by Jing Kong into breaking their precepts. In the end, the eldest of the three, Jing Fan, had a taste of the meatball with the spirit of sacrificing himself. Then it was out of control. Little Jing Kong, who had always been snatching food from others, encountered the first snatching of food in his life. He was stunned on the spot for 3 seconds. He, the little expert of snatching food in the temple, who had been focused on snatching food for 3.5 years, was snatched by others one day. Not only were the vegetarian meatballs snatched, but even the pastries and wild fruits were not spared. The three defeated opponents in the past seemed to have mastered all their skills in an instant, and little Jing Kong was defenseless. Little Jing Kong beat his small chest with his small fists. Sooner or later, he would have to pay for what he had done. The three young monks only found out today that the food at the foot of the mountain was so delicious. They suddenly wanted to go down the mountain. What should they do? Putting aside the snatching of food, the four of them got along quite well. Little Jing Kong described his life at the foot of the mountain to them. After learning that he was taking in his brother-in-law every day, Jing Fan asked, "Whose brother-in-law? Your father?" They were still young, and they were not as smart as little Jing Kong. Therefore, they did not understand what brother-in-law meant. However, the male head of the family seemed to be their father. Little Jing Kong sighed. He's a temporary father. Jiao Jiao can change him at any time. Little Jing Kong called Gu Jiao Jiao Jiao, but in his heart, he treated Gu Jiao as his mother. However, he could not guarantee that Xiao Lulang was his father. After all, according to his observation, this father of his had not been officially promoted yet. He could be fired at any time. As they chatted, they somehow talked about their own homework. Jing Fan said, "We memorized a lot of Buddhist scriptures while you were away. You didn't memorize any of them, right?" Jing Xin agreed, "That's right." Jing Shan nodded. Little Jing Kong raised his eyebrows. Oh? What did you memorize? Jing Fan said, Prajna Paramita Sutra. Little Jing Kong spread his hands. I memorized it when I was 2 years old. Jing Shin, Buddha's Medicine Guru, Tathagata Sutra. Little Jing Kong shrugged. I memorized it when I was 2 years and 3 months old. Jing Shan said, Rong Yen Sutra. Little Jing Kong picked his ears and sighed helplessly. It's the Rong Yen Sutra, idiot. You even said the wrong name. Are you really memorized it? The little monks' faces turned red. How were they really memorized it? All they did was memorize the names, and it took them a few days to memorize the names. They were so tired that their little heads were about to explode. Sigh, it's boring to talk about scriptures with you. I'll go look for the abbot. Little Jing Kong jumped down the stairs and went to look for the abbot with his short legs. The abbot had just sat down in the hall and was about to preach scriptures to the monks. Suddenly, a young novice monk rushed over. Abbot, bad news. Jing Kong is here to look for you. He wants to talk about scriptures and Zen with you. The abbot's body swayed and the prayer beads in his hands fell out of his hands. That little troublemaker wants to talk about Zen with me? He wants to kill me. Little Jing Kong had been studying Buddhist scriptures since he was a child. He was curious about everything about Buddhist scriptures. If the abbot said one sentence, he would ask 10 questions. In the end, the abbot couldn't answer him. Everything that has a form is fabricated. If everything that has a form is fabricated, then is the abbot also fabricated? If the abbot is fabricated, then what the abbot said to me is also fabricated. Then I can't believe the abbot. If I can't believe the abbot, then I can't believe the Buddhist scriptures that the abbot told me. The Buddhist scriptures are also fabricated. The abbot thought, although you are twisting words and forcing logic, I actually feel that it makes sense. The abbot regained his composure with his professionalism and patiently explained the situation to him. After listening, he said, I think what you said is wrong. The abbot said, What's wrong? You are too young to understand. Little Jing Kong said, Buddha is so smart. He must have a way to make me understand. You didn't convey his meaning properly. This is not my problem. It is the abbot's problem. There were many similar conversations. Usually, the abbot didn't persuade him, but he used his own logic to lead the new monks in the temple astray. The fear of being dominated by little Jing Kong welled up in the abbot's heart and made him feel uncomfortable. When Gu Jiao finally came to pick up Little Clear Sky had successfully questioned all the monks in the hall with her own strength. Black smoke was rising from their heads. Abbot, I'm leaving. We can discuss this next time. Little Jing Kong turned his head and waved his other hand at the abbot. One of his hands was held by Gu Jiao. The abbot, who wished he could die on the spot, was ashen-faced. Please don't come. The brother and sister went down the mountain hand in hand. Little Jing Kong was restless and wanted to run down the mountain. However, it had just rained and the road was slippery. Gu Jiao was worried that he would roll down the mountain like a little winter melon, so she didn't dare to let go. Did you have fun today? Gu Jiao suddenly asked. Yes. Little Jing Kong said cutely and raised his little hand to count. Today, I saw Jing Xin, Jing Fan, Jing Shan, Senior Jing Chen, and the abbot. He said a lot of things, basically telling him everything he saw in the temple. You didn't see your master? Gu Jiao asked. Little Jing Kong sighed. He appears and disappears mysteriously. He is rarely on the mountain. Old man? Gu Jiao thought of the strange monk in the forest. That monk was very young, so he couldn't be the old man that little Jing Kong was talking about. What Gu Jiao didn't know was that little Jing Kong was only referring to his own age. His master was actually not that old. He was more than 20 years younger than the abbot. Gu Jiao asked again, Then are there any good-looking monks in the temple? The best-looking ones. That monk was almost as good-looking as Xiao Lulang. There was probably no other monk like him in the world. Yes. Little Jing Kong raised his head solemnly and pointed at himself. Me. Gu Jiao was speechless. Gu Jiao said, Except for you. Little Jing Kong said firmly. Then there's no one else. I'm the best-looking monk in the world. Except for me, no one else is good-looking. His master wasn't good-looking either. Because his master said that he was the best-looking monk in the world, Little Jing Kong thought that he was the best-looking monk. So he would never admit that his master was good-looking. Gu Jiao said, was that person not a monk in this temple? Digression, monk. Little brat, who are you saying is not good-looking? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/115546733. HTML Genius. Memorize the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 97. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. When Gu Jiao and Little Jing Kong went down the mountain, Xiao Lulang had already returned from the academy. Gu Xiaoshun had been living in the academy recently. First, he had completely fallen out with the Gu family. Second, he was obsessed with the knives that Xiao Lulang brought him. Every night, he would carve in the dormitory by the light. As for Xiao Liulang's safety, he didn't have to worry about it. Recently, second Uncle Luo sprained his ankle, so his son, De Zhuang, drove the ox cart. De Zhuang had a close relationship with Gu Xiaoshun, so he promised to take good care of Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang was carrying buckets of water into the house. It was obvious that he was struggling. His legs were inconvenient, so Gu Jiao rarely let him do this kind of heavy work. Gu Jiao walked over and took the wooden bucket from him. "Let me do it." "I can do it," Xiao Lulang said. "You go and make a fire. I'll cook later." Gu Jiao didn't give him a chance to refuse. She decisively took the wooden bucket, carried it with a shoulder pole, added another bucket, and turned to the entrance of the village to fetch water. Little Jing Kong patted his small chest and said, "I also want to help Jiao Jiao to fetch water." After that, he found his personal tools in the backyard, a mini shoulder pole and 2 mini wooden buckets. He imitated Gu Jiao and carried them on his small shoulders, and valiantly went to fetch water. This set of tools was made by Gu Jiao for Little Jing Kong. The reason was that he wanted to help, but he couldn't carry a big wooden bucket. So Gu Jiao made a pair of small, light, and sealed wooden buckets for him. They were also equipped with a small shoulder pole. The amount of water he brought back was less than a big bowl. On the other hand, Gu Jiao spent a lot of time and energy making tools for him. When they arrived at the ancient well, Gu Jiao first filled the small wooden bucket in Little Jing Kong with water. Although he was allowed to carry water, Gu Jiao explicitly forbade him from drawing water from the well. Little Jing Kong was very obedient and never went near the ancient well. 1 adult and 1 child carried the water back home. Gu Jiao poured 2 big buckets of water into the water tank, and the water level in the tank immediately rose a lot. 2 small buckets of water from Little Jing Kong went down. It was as if there was no water at all. However, when Little Jing Kong looked at the full tank, he still felt that his 2 handfuls of water were very effective. He was very proud of himself. "What are you laughing about?" It was Xiao Lulang. As soon as Xiao Lulang entered the kitchen, he saw a certain little monk standing on a wooden stool, looking at the water jar with a proud expression. He was just looking at the water ripples. Those who didn't know would think that he was looking at his own small kingdom. Hearing his bad brother-in-law's voice, Little Jing Kong's little face became serious. He raised his eyebrows and glanced at him. He snorted coldly and said, I'm working. Xiao Lulang was amused by him and wanted to laugh. "You still know about working?" What can a 3-year-old kid do? Little Jing Kong jumped down from the wooden stool and said angrily, I can do a lot of things. Much more than you. I can fetch water. I can feed chickens. I can even help Jiao Jiao wash clothes. Half of the clothes at home are washed by me. I do more work at home than you do. I'm not a kid. You are. Xiao Lulang glanced at his toy carrying pole and toy wooden bucket and said with a smile, Then you really know how to work. Let others work. How tiring it is to work these things. Humph. In order to prove that he was indeed a little expert at home, little Jing Kong decisively walked to the wooden tub where the clothes were soaked. He pulled up his trousers, kicked off his shoes, and jumped into the tub. His little feet stepped on the school uniform that Xiao Lulang had just changed out of. Xiao Lulang was stunned. The clothes at home were all washed like this? Little Jing Kong's little feet stepped on the tub happily. He could enjoy the pleasure of stepping on water even without the rain. He could also wash the clothes while he was at it. He was really a smart and hard-working kid. Gu Jiao walked out. She originally wanted to wash the clothes, but seeing that little Jing Kong was still stepping on the tub, she didn't go over for the time being. Xiao Lulang asked in disbelief, The clothes at home are all washed like this? Gu Jiao nodded. Not only the clothes, the salted vegetables that you eat every day are also stepped on by him. Xiao Lulang was instantly speechless. Haha. Gu Jiao burst out laughing. She rarely laughed so hard, but Xiao Liulang's expression, which looked like he had swallowed a fly, really hit the funny spot of her 2 lifetimes. I'm lying, she said. Why would I let him step on the salted vegetables? Xiao Lulang secretly heaved a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. Gu Jiao continued. He's so weak, he can't step on the salted vegetables well. Xiao Lulang was once again speechless. Isn't it because the salted vegetables can't be eaten? If that's the case, when the little monk becomes stronger in the future, won't he be able to step on the salted vegetables for me to eat? The scene was so beautiful that Xiao Lulang couldn't bear to look at it. Gu Jiao bent over laughing. Phew, phew. Little Jing Kong was tired and sweating after stepping on the salted vegetables. He went back to his room to drink water. Only then did Gu Jiao walk forward to wash the clothes that had been wrinkled by him. Little Jing Kong wanted to work, so Gu Jiao never discouraged his enthusiasm. At most, she would clean the clothes again every time he finished. Gu Jiao didn't raise him to the level of scientific parenting. She just felt that it was fine as long as he had fun. At this time, Gu Jiao didn't know that the courage and strength of a certain immortal general who would conquer the 6 countries in the future came from Gu Jiao's strong childhood. You don't have to spoil him so much. Xiao Lulang said expressionlessly. I spoil you a lot too. Gu Jiao smiled and took out a clean wooden basin. She took out Xiao Liulang's clothes and put them in. Then, she gently rubbed them with her not-so-delicate hands. You don't usually wash your clothes like this. Today, you put them in the basin yourself, and he saw you. The clothes of the 3 of them were made of coarse linen, so it didn't matter if they stepped on them. Xiao Liulang's school uniform was made of silk and cotton. Gu Jiao used a special wooden basin to wash his clothes, and used very little strength. Because it was light, it was slow. Washing one of his clothes was equivalent to washing the clothes of the whole family. But Gu Jiao never said these things. Xiao Lulang was still immersed in the huge impact of her words. I also spoil you a lot. Immediately after, he saw her carefully and seriously wash his clothes. Her small hands, which had turned white from soaking in the honey locust water, didn't seem to be grabbing his collar, but his heart. For a moment, he felt that the relationship between the 2 of them seemed to be developing in an uncontrollable direction. Xiao Lulang was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. No way. They were only husband and wife in name. There would be a day when they would have to part ways. The 2 of them definitely couldn't have anything that shouldn't happen between them. During dinner, Xiao Lulang sat on the bench. His white school uniform, which had been dried, fluttered in the wind, making him a little upset. After dinner, Xiao Lulang gave little Jing Kong a bath. Then, he took an axe to the backyard to chop firewood. Gu Jiao was tidying up the kitchen. Old Madam was secretly eating dried bayberries in her room. Rain began to fall from the sky. Jiao jiao, jiao jiao. Little Jing Kong suddenly ran out of the west room with a small pillow in his arms. The roof is leaking. Gu Jiao went to the west room with him. It wasn't raining heavily at the moment. The rain in the afternoon should have accumulated on the roof tiles and leaked down because of the wind. The leak was facing their bed, so it wasn't easy to fix it. Moreover, if it rained heavily in the middle of the night, the roof tiles might break. The roof wasn't stable to begin with. It would be bad if it collapsed because of the heavy rain. Gu Jiao said, "We can't sleep here tonight. Sleep in my room. I'll fix the roof after the rain stops." Little Jing Kong hugged his small pillow and happily went to Gu Jiao's room. Of course, Xiao Lulang could only fall asleep as well. Fortunately, Gu Jiao's bed was big enough for the three of them to lie down. Little Jing Kong didn't want to share the bed with his bad brother-in-law. After all, his bad brother-in-law was so big that he had to take up a lot of space. He was so small that he could just snuggle in Jiao Jiao's arms. "I'm so happy that I can sleep with Jiao Jiao." Little Jing Kong lay down on Gu Jiao's bed happily, as he wished. He spread himself out. He was covered with a Jiao Jiao quilt. Lying on a Jiao Jiao mattress, Jiao Jiao pillow, Jiao Jiao pillow, Jiao 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 Jiao. Little Jing Kong was so excited that he rolled around on the bed. Suddenly, the door was pushed open and a demonic palm reached out towards him, grabbing his waistband and lifting him up. Little Jing Kong was so shocked that his hands and feet fluttered. "Great aunt." The old lady said, "You'll sleep with me tonight." Little Jing Kong, "I don't want to." "Old Madam, you want it." Little Jing Kong, "Why?" The old lady said, "For my little great-grandson." Old Madam mercilessly took the little guy back to her room. Little Jing Kong's dream was shattered just like that. First, he had an unreasonable brother-in-law, and now he had an even more unreasonable great-aunt. His life was so miserable. When Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang finished their respective tasks, Little Jing Kong had already exhausted all his energy in the battle of wits and courage with the old lady. He tilted his head and started snoring. Gu Jiao didn't say anything. She took a shower and went back to her room to lie down. She had been tired the whole day, so she fell asleep very quickly. After a while, she started to breathe evenly. When Xiao Lulang came back after his shower, she had already fallen asleep on the pillow. An oil lamp was left on in the room for him. Now that the weather was getting warmer, the thick quilt couldn't cover her. She covered half of it and kicked the other half. Xiao Lulang hesitated for a moment, then walked over and pulled the quilt up for her. Then he extinguished the oil lamp and slowly lay down beside her. At first, he had his back to her, but his body would easily become numb after a long time. So he turned around. But what he didn't know was that Gu Jiao also turned around and moved her head to rest on his pillow. His lips rubbed against her face without warning. His mind buzzed for a moment before it went blank. It was raining heavily outside the room, and the sound of the rain hitting the roof tiles was loud. However, he didn't hear anything. His mind was filled with the sound of his heartbeat. He subconsciously raised his hand and wanted to push her away, but he didn't push the place. He felt an unfamiliar warmth and softness, and his mind exploded. Gu Jiao slept very well that night. Perhaps it was the effect of the golden sore medicine and the herbs that Xiao Lulang brought back. When she woke up, she felt that her wound didn't hurt at all. However, she found a few drops of dried blood on her pillow. Whose blood is this? Xiao Lulang had already woken up and was preparing the holy fire in the kitchen. Gu Jiao also went to the kitchen after washing up. The sky was brighter than in the winter, so the kitchen was no longer pitch black. Gu Jiao was able to see Xiao Yolang's face clearly. She looked for a long time, then blinked and asked, "You didn't sleep well?" Xiao Lulang had 2 huge dark circles under his eyes. His expression didn't change as he said, "I started reading a little late." Oh. Gu Jiao slept early, so there was no way to know what time he was reading. Thinking of something, Gu Jiao said, "Oh right, are you hurt? There's blood on your pillow." Xiao Lulang said seriously, "It's not my blood." Gu Jiao was puzzled. Then is it mine? My wound healed a long time ago. Xiao Lulang gave her a deep look and said in all seriousness, "You're heaty and have a nosebleed. I saw it all." Gu Jiao was very puzzled. "I drink chameleon herb tea every day. How can I be heaty?" Xiao Lulang said expressionlessly, "Who knows?" Xiao Liulang's expression was too serious, so it was hard for anyone to suspect him. Gu Jiao nodded and went to the central room. She pinched her nose and drank a big bowl of Hao-Tuinia tea. After drinking so much, he finally wouldn't be heaty anymore. Xiao Lulang closed his eyes guiltily and broke out in a cold sweat. During breakfast, Xiao Lulang suddenly remembered something. "I forgot to tell you yesterday that I found a primary school in town. I can bring Jing Kong to school today." Little Jing Kong, who was going to school, was stunned. So sudden? Gu Jiao served a bowl of sweet potato porridge to the old lady and little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong looked at his bad brother-in-law vigilantly while slurping the porridge. He felt that this was his bad brother-in-law's scheme. "I forgot to tell you yesterday." He was teased as soon as he came home. He really forgot. Xiao Lulang continued, "Children from rich families will hire a tutor at home when they are 5 years old. They will study until they are 6 or 7 years old. After they can read the 1,000-character classic, they will be sent to the family school or a private school. Although he is young, he is smart and has attended classes in the temple. It won't be a big problem." Little Jing Kong became more vigilant when he was praised by his bad brother-in-law for being smart for the first time. Conspiracy, it was definitely a conspiracy. "Where's the primary school?" Gu Jiao asked. Xiao Lulang said, "It's near Tianxiang Academy. It's a private school that has been open for more than 10 years. There's a primary school there. His class time is similar to mine. He can go to school with me every day." Here it comes, here it comes. Bad brother-in-law is going to separate him from Jiao Jiao. Gu Jiao had a kindergarten in her previous life. Therefore, she was very receptive to 3-year-old children going to school. When Gu Jiao was not at home, little Jing Kong was a loudspeaker spirit. He would blabber all day long. Although the old lady suffered from it, she was happy to see him go to school. Gu Jiao turned to little Jing Kong and asked, "Jing Kong, do you want to go to school?" No. Little Jing Kong was careful. If he said that he did not want to go to school, wouldn't he become a school-weary child? Bad brother-in-law really knew how to set a trap for him. Fortunately, he was smart. Little Jing Kong said cutely, "If I go to school, Jiao Jiao won't see me for a day." Gu Jiao patted his little head and said, "It's okay. I'll send you to school in the morning and wait for you at the village entrance at night. If I'm free, I'll go to the private school to pick you up." At this point, little Jing Kong wouldn't be a sensible child if he continued to refuse. He swallowed the sweet potato porridge in his mouth without tasting it. He squeezed out a cute smile and said, "Okay, since Jiao Jiao wants me to go to school, I'll go." He definitely had to go to school. However, in order to make up for the loss of not being able to see Gu Jiao for a day, little Jing Kong asked for 2 little kisses. Primary school was not cheap. It cost 2 taels of silver a month for tuition and lunch. If he did not go to school in the middle, he would not get a refund. Gu Jiao put the 2 taels of silver into little Jing Kong's pocket. He insisted on paying the tuition himself. He did not want his bad brother-in-law to help him. The 2 of them went to school on the ox cart. Gu Jiao was thinking about how to fix the roof at home. She went up to the roof to take a look. She found that there were a lot of broken tiles. If there was a few more heavy rains, the 3 rooms would leak. She decided to fix the entire roof and build 2 small rooms in the backyard. That way, Gu Jiao would not have to worry about not having a place to stay when she returned to the village. She had some money on hand, but it was not enough to do so many things. She went to the Zhouji private bank in town and withdrew 20 taels of silver. She also asked how much money was left in the bank. The manager of the private bank told her 1,100 taels. Gu Jiao was stunned for 3 seconds. "Did you make a mistake? Not 110 taels? 1,100 taels?" The manager smiled and said, "Our Zhouji private bank is trustworthy. We can't go against our conscience and cheat you of your money." When Xiao Lulang gave her the cards, she did not think much about it. She thought it was 180 taels. She did not expect it to be so much. Actually, it was more than that, but he spent 100 taels to buy Gu Jiao a brush. It was really the work of a master in the whole of Zhao country. Poor Gu Jiao, who had complained for a long time because of his stray taste. The other 20 taels of silver were the travel expenses that Gu Jiao gave to Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang did not spend all of it and saved it in the private bank. Gu Jiao doubted her life and asked, did he really go to take the exam? She was sure that he did not go to the prefectural city to start copying books. Then Gu Jiao suddenly recalled that Dean Li had mentioned to her about the cheating in the college entrance examination. Dean Li had said that he didn't know why Xiao Lulang didn't retake the exam. Gu Jiao thought that she probably knew. After receiving the money, Gu Jiao returned to the village to repair the house. She hired a few craftsmen in the village and told them her requirements. She wanted them to finish repairing the house in the shortest time possible. As long as there was enough money, there was no need to worry that they would not work quickly. Moreover, this was Scholar Zhao's house. They were still hoping that when Xiao Lulang graduated from high school, they would be able to put a few mu of free land under his name. While Gu Jiao was busy repairing the house, Gu Jinyu suddenly fell ill. She had felt that something was wrong the night she returned from Qingchuan village. She thought that she was tired and did not think much of it. However, she had a high fever in the middle of the night. The old servant in the villa said that she had bumped into something unclean when she went to visit the grave. The imperial physician prescribed medicine, but it was not very effective. Marquis Gu was burning with anxiety. If I had known, I would not have let Jinyu visit the grave. Cough, cough. Gu Jinyu covered her mouth with a handkerchief and coughed. She asked weakly, I'm fine. How is younger brother? These 2 days, Gu Yan had not been feeling well. It was mainly because he was born with a weak body. After a night of excitement, his body was exhausted. To prevent him from running around, Yao Shi had no choice but to stay by his bed at all times. He's fine. When she mentioned this, Marquis Gu was very gratified. His son's body was much stronger than before. If he had dared to do this in the past, he would have lost his life long ago. Now, after lying in bed for a few days, he was alive and kicking again. However, to be safe, he and Yao Shi both felt that they should let their son rest in the room for a few more days. It's good that younger brother is fine, Gu Jinyu said as she coughed. Marquis Gu's heart ached. Aya, you're already so sick and you're still worried about your brother. Gu Jinyu smiled slightly. After all, he is my only younger brother. Marquis Gu thought of his unfilial daughter, Gu Jiao. He gritted his teeth and said, if only that girl was half as sensible as you. I heard about what happened that day from Huangzhong. She gave you a hard time, didn't she? I think you didn't run into anything dirty. She just fell ill from anger. Gu Jinyu quickly said, Father, don't say that about elder sister. Elder sister grew up in the countryside all these years. That family did not treat her well. She just suffered too much and doesn't know how to interact with people. If it were me, I wouldn't have done better than elder sister. Marquis Gu said, You're just too kind. Gu Jinyu shook her head. My illness this time really wasn't caused by elder sister. It's my own fault. After a pause, she told Marquis Gu about losing the question paper. Aunt had high hopes for me, but I lost the question that I had solved with great difficulty. In my anxiety, I fell ill. Marquis Gu patted the back of her hand. Silly girl, what's there to be anxious about? Even if you can't solve it, your aunt won't blame you. Really? Gu Jinyu's face was full of disbelief. Marquis Gu smiled mysteriously. Your aunt sent a letter again. Guess what she said in the letter? Gu Jinyu thought about it seriously. She wants father to bring me back to the capital quickly? Marquis Gu said, of course. What else? Gu Jinyu frowned slightly. I can't guess. Marquis Gu looked at her dotingly and smiled proudly. Your aunt has prepared a big gift for you. She had intended to give you a surprise when you returned to the capital. There's no harm in telling you earlier. Your aunt has asked His Majesty for grace. On the day of your coming-of-age ceremony, His Majesty will personally issue a decree to confer you the title of County Princess. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_8966/115544409. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 98. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. In a room filled with the smell of medicine, Yao Shi was guarding her son's bed. She was so tired that she leaned against the bedpost and fell asleep. Gu Yan quietly opened his eyes and sneakily looked at Yao Shi for a while. He reached out his slender hand and waved it in front of Yao Shi's eyes. After confirming that Yao Shi was really asleep, he smiled wickedly. He slowly pulled back the quilt and tiptoed out of bed. Growing up, he was used to calling the wind and drinking the rain. This was the first time he was so careful. It was quite refreshing. Gu Yan sneaked out of the room like a thief. Yao Shi's body swayed. Gu Yan was so scared that he almost fell ill. Fortunately, Yao Shi did not wake up. She straightened her body and went back to sleep. Shi Yi, the maidservants on duty outside, had been lured away by the secret guards. He only needed to walk out of the courtyard to meet up with them. Unexpectedly, he was caught by Yuya as soon as he walked into the front yard. Yuya was holding a newly sewn quilt. She looked at him strangely and said, "Young master, what are you doing? Didn't the madam tell you to lie down on the bed? Why did you come out without wearing your shoes?" Gu Yan cleared his throat. "Would you believe me if I said that I came out for a walk?" Yuya's face darkened. She held the quilt with one arm and put her other hand on her waist. "Are you thinking of running away again?" Gu Yan blinked guiltily. Yuya glared at him. "You really want to run away?" "No. You can't go out." Gu Yan's dangerous eyes narrowed. His murderous aura instantly overflowed. "Do you believe that this young master won't kill you?" Yuya faced death calmly and said, "Even if you kill me, I won't let you go out." Gu Yan helplessly held his forehead. This girl was stubborn. She would rather die than submit. Back then, she had spoken up for Gu Jiao. Now, she was blocking him in the backyard. Gu Yan would rather break than bend, but that was in the past. Now that he was going to meet the most important person in his life, he didn't care about his pride anymore. Gu Yan's murderous aura a moment ago had turned into a Sichuan opera performance in a second. He put on a weeping expression and looked at Yuya with an aggrieved expression. His appearance was as pitiful as it could get. If he howled again, Yuya would think that he was possessed by a puppy. Little young master, what's wrong with you?" Yuya could not handle such a weak and easily bullied young master. Gu Yan bites her red lips, feeling wronged. "I just want to go out and get some fresh air. Just for a while." Yuya suffered a critical hit from her cuteness. Just once. Really just once? Gu Yan nodded coquettishly. Yes. Yuya clutched her chest. "All right then. Go ahead. I'll stand guard here." No way. If she stayed any longer, she would reach out and rub the young master's head. Gu Yan successfully deceived Yuya. The moment he left the courtyard, his expression turned cold and the corners of his lips curled up wickedly. He successfully arrived at the small garden and met up with the hidden guards. The hidden guards brought him out of a residence and into the carriage that had been prepared beforehand. They sped towards Qingchuan village. Huang Zhong sensed Gu Yan's whereabouts and hurried to Lanting Pavilion to report to Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu let him speak outside the door. Huang Zhong said, "Little young master slipped out of the residence. It seems that he went towards the town." "Town?" Marquis Gu frowned. Gu Jinyu looked at his father and said, "Father, did younger brother go to look for elder sister?" "He most likely went to look for her." Marquis Gu knew that he could not keep his son locked up, so he was not too surprised by this outcome. "Then, do you want to find younger brother and bring him back?" Marquis Gu shook his head. "You know his character very well. Other than your mother, who can stop him?" To put it bluntly, in the entire residence, Gu Yan only gave face to Madame Miao. If he sent people to capture him, there would only be two outcomes. One was that they would be defeated by Gu Yan's hidden guards, and the other was that Gu Yan would be angered to the point of collapsing. Marquis Gu waved his hand. "Forget it, let him be. In any case, that girl would not bully Gu Yan." Besides this, he had another consideration. The siblings were close. Perhaps Gu Yan could make that girl return to the Marquis's residence willingly if he made an appearance. It was not that he desperately wanted to acknowledge that girl, but Madame Yao and Gu Yan both liked her very much. He could only accept her. It was just past noon, and there were not many people on the streets. The carriage arrived at Qingchuan village without any obstructions. Recently, there had been a lot of carriages coming to the village, and the villagers were already used to it. However, when they saw a young master who was as beautiful as jade alight from the carriage, they were still shocked. Gu Yan had a clean and pure temperament, as if he was a piece of refined jade without any impurities. The most handsome person in the village was Xiao Lulang, followed by Gu Dasun. However, there was still a world of difference between the two. The difference between this young man and Xiao Lulang was not big. It could even be said that there was almost no difference. The villagers' eyes were fixed on him. This. Which family's young master is this? Who is he looking for? You think he's looking for you? Of course he's looking for Lulang and Jianyang. The villagers, who were fetching water at the entrance of the village, began to banter with each other. If it was in the past, such a noble person would definitely come to the Gu family. However, old Master Gu suddenly stopped being the village chief a while ago. Madame Wu said that old Master Gu was old and could no longer take care of the villagers, so she took the initiative to resign. However, there were rumors in the village that they had offended someone and were punished by that person. As for who they had offended, the villagers guessed that it was Xiao Liulang's family. Xiao Lulang had passed the examination to become a government official, and his grades were even better than Gu Dashuan's. The county magistrate thought highly of him, so it was not surprising that he would punish the Gu family for him. Gu Jiao's family had recently been renovating their house. They had built 2 new large brick houses, which had just been completed this morning. Gu Jiao and the craftsmen were currently moving the newly added furniture into the new houses. When they finished moving the last wardrobe, Gu Jiao felt that someone was coming from behind her. The man poked her lightly on the shoulder. With Madame Yao as an example, Gu Jiao was no longer so paranoid. She calmly turned around and saw Gu Yan, who was about to poke her a second time. Gu Yan did not expect her to turn around so quickly and was immediately stunned. That dazed and bewildered appearance was very similar to that of the little puppy in the countryside residence. Gu Jiao chuckled. "You're here?" Gu Yan returned to his senses and smiled. "And I came to see you." Gu Jiao looked at his sweaty appearance and could roughly guess how anxious he had been on the way here. She pointed to the chair in the central room. "Sit down, I'll go pour you a cup of tea." Gu Yan sat down on the chair. Gu Jiao went to the kitchen to pour him some hot tea. He began to look around the room. Gu Yan, who had lived a life of luxury since childhood, had never been to such a dilapidated residence. Not to mention the Marquis Fu, even the woodshed in the mountain villa was much larger than this place. Gu Yan's initial excitement gradually cooled down, and he felt a great heartache. His heart was truly in pain. The fetters of the twins made his heart ache for Gu Jiao more than anyone else. When Gu Jiao came over with a large bowl of hot tea, Guyen suddenly hugged her waist and pressed his head tightly against her stomach. Ever since he was 3 years old, he had never been this intimate with Yao Shi. But in this moment, his heart was in extreme pain. Gu Jiao was a very observant person when she was on a mission, but she was a bit slow on a normal day. However, there was a person in this world who did not need to guess or think to be able to feel his emotions. This was probably the reaction of the twins. He was feeling heartache for her. Gu Jiao placed the tea bowl on the table and gently patted his head. "I'm very good." Guyen buried his face in her body. A tear suddenly fell from the corner of Gu Jiao's eye. Gu Jiao strangely wiped it with her index finger and said to Guyen, "Oh, you're crying?" "I'm not." Guyen denied in a choked voice. Gu Jiao patted his head and gestured for him to look at the tears on her fingertips. "You're crying." Her eyes were crying with him, so the twins could shed tears for each other. Guyen firmly refused to admit that he was crying. After wiping his tears, he raised his head and looked at her as if nothing had happened. "I'm hungry." Gu Jiao said, "I'll go make something for you to eat." Guyen asked, "Can I take a look?" He was referring to the residence. Gu Jiao nodded and thought of something. She pointed to her great-aunt's room and said, "Great-aunt is sleeping. Just don't disturb her." Guyen wandered around the residence. It was a little far-fetched to call it a residence. It was just a courtyard. After entering, there was a bright and spacious central room. On the two sides were the east room, the west room, and the old lady's small east room. After passing through the central room, there was a backyard. To the north was a kitchen and a woodshed. To the east were 2 new rooms. To the west was a chicken coop and a small vegetable garden in Little Jingkong. "It seems that no one lives in this room." Guyen pointed to a room in the east and said. Gu Jiao picked vegetables in the small vegetable garden and said, "That's Xiaoshuan's house. It was just built. He's at the academy and will only come back during the holidays." "Is he the younger brother of the Gu family?" Guyen asked sourly. Guyen had heard about the Gu family and knew that they were not good people. Only Gu Xiaoshun and Gu Jiao had a good relationship. "Yes, that's him." Gu Jiao nodded. "What about this?" Guyen pointed to a brand new chicken coop. This chicken coop was much bigger than the doghouse in his yard. Gu Jiao said, "That's the chicken coop in Jingkong. He has a few chickens. He went to school and will only come back at night." Of course, Guyen knew about the little monk she brought back from the mountain. Guyen only felt a sea of jealousy surging. Just who was her biological brother? Gu Jiao paused and asked him, "Do you want to live here? If you want, you can live in Xiaoshuan's." Let him live in Gu Xiaoshuan's house? Guyen was very angry. He snorted and said with disdain, "I don't want to live here." Gu Jiao said regretfully, "I see. Okay then." Guyen pointed coldly to the house next to Gu Xiaoshuan's house and asked with a sour face, "Which brother's house is this?" "My biological brother." Gu Jiao said. "Biological brother? Huh. Wait, what did you say? Biological brother?" Guyen pointed to himself with uncertainty. "Mine?" She didn't let him live in Gu Xiaoshuan's house, but next to Gu Xiaoshuan's? "Yes." Gu Jiao nodded. "But don't you—" "Yes, yes, 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 yes." Before Gu Jiao could finish, Guyen slipped into his house, slammed the door, and bolted it. No one was allowed to get him out of the house. From now on, he was going to germinate here. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896426/1155136664. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Mobile reading website. zhhbqg. Com. Chapter 99. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The two hidden guards were speechless. Was this a golden house or a silver house? Was there a need to be this excited? You're still afraid that someone will fish you out. Look at your legs. Did you forget that you have a congenital heart disease? Did you forget that your own wooden hut is bigger and more luxurious than this small farmhouse? Who was it that complained that the villa's environment was not good, that it was not high-end enough? Humph. Double standards. Even though the two secret guards were complaining in their hearts, they couldn't really pull their little master out from inside and take him away. He didn't know what he was doing, but they couldn't help but know for him. They could not hit him, could not move him, could not get angry. This was their family's sick little darling. Hidden guard A, what do we do? Hidden guard B, what can we do? Guard him. Hidden guard A, I'm talking about the villa. Not going back is not a solution. They will send people to look for him. If they looked, they would disturb the young master and young miss. That way, the young master would get angry, and when he got angry, it would be easy for his illness to flare up, the two sighed in unison. How did they end up with such a delicate young master? After some discussion, the two decided that one would stay here, and the other would go to the villa to report. Inside the villa, Marquis Gu was directing the servants to renovate Gu Yan's courtyard. The main thing was to prepare a clean and tidy room for Gu Jiao, build a small flower shed, and put in new and expensive furniture for her. Acknowledging that girl was already an established fact, he could not resist. He had to establish the image of a good father. For Yao Shi, make the shed wider. Marquis, Gu sternly said. The servant said, Marquis, if it's any wider, it will crush the young master's pear tree. Marquis Gu scoffed. He won't say anything even if you chop him up. As long as it was for that girl, Gu Yan wouldn't say a word even if Gu Yan had to tear down her own house. Thinking about how he had accidentally chopped off a pear tree branch and that Brat had been angry with him for an entire month, Marquis Gu felt a bit sullen. Huang Zhong pondered. Howie, isn't it too early to repair the house? Would eldest miss really come to stay? What if she doesn't come? Wouldn't you have touched the young master's pear tree for nothing? Marquis Gu chuckled. Don't worry, she will definitely come. The relationship between the siblings is so good. There's no way she would reject Yan Er. Huang Zhong seemed to understand, but he didn't. He thought for a while and said, what if the young master didn't ask? Marquis Gu glared at him. How could he not ask? Don't you see how much he likes that girl? In the past, I didn't know that she was his sister. Now that I know, how can I not bring her home? As the two of them spoke, Shadow Guard B arrived in front of Marquis Gu. Huang Zhong drew his sword from his waist. Shadow Guard B flashed his token. I am the young master's Shadow Guard. I am here to report to the Marquis. Gu Yan's Shadow Guards were arranged by the old Marquis. When the old Marquis was young, he had trained his own army. Later on, the army was absorbed by the imperial court, and some of the soldiers who could no longer fight were left by the old Marquis. These Shadow Guards were their descendants. They were skilled in martial arts, and their movements were mysterious. There weren't many of them, and Marquis Gu didn't even have one by his side. This was the first time Marquis Gu saw the old Marquis's Shadow Guard. He narrowed his eyes and said, Yenner asked you to report? Why? Do I have to make preparations in advance, just to bring back a servant girl? Shadow Guardby said. Marquis Gu misunderstood. The young master didn't ask me to come. The young master didn't have time to care about me. I am here to tell you that the young master won't be coming back. Well, what? Who won't be coming back? Marquis Gu suspected that he had heard wrongly. Shadow Guardby also suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. He thought for a while and said clearly, your son Gu Yan. Marquis Gu was stunned. Why won't he be coming back? Shadow Guardby calmly said, "He's staying at the young Miss house." He paused, worried that he didn't hear clearly, and said word by word, "It's your daughter, Gu Jiao." Marquis Gu exploded. "I don't need you to say it. I know it's that girl." Shadow Guardby looked at him strangely. "It's really strange. When I said the young master, you didn't realize it was your son. When I said the young miss, you realized it was that girl. Aren't you being too biased?" Marquis Gu, "I can't believe it, I can't believe it, do you understand?" Shadow Guardby didn't understand. It wasn't taught in the assassin course. Marquis Gu was so angry that his heart hurt. "I told you to kidnap that girl back. Who told you to be kidnapped by that girl?" The news quickly spread to Yao Shi's side. Yao Shi had already moved back to Gu Yan's courtyard. Actually, she had woken up not long after Gu Yan left. Sure enough, she still couldn't keep an eye on her son. Yao Shi helplessly shook her head. She didn't let her son go out, not because she was worried that her son's body wouldn't be able to take it. She was also worried that her daughter hadn't fully digested her past, and if her son suddenly went to find her, she would be troubled. When she learned that Gu Yan was staying in her daughter's village, Yao Shi was relieved. Her daughter was willing to accept Gu Yan, which meant that her daughter didn't feel that she was disturbed. Perhaps she had already accepted her past. But Nurse Fong was a little worried. "Madam, the conditions in the village are so bad. The young master is so precious. How can he get used to living here?" Nurse Fong was a little headstrong and self-opinionated, but her loyalty to Yao Shi and Gu Yan wasn't fake. As for Gu Jiao, Nurse Fong still didn't like her. Yao Shi smiled and said, "Jiao Jiao will take good care of him." Nurse Fong said, "He's also not used to the food." Yao Shi warmly said, "Jiao Jiao is a doctor. She knows more than us and knows what Yen can and can't eat. Moreover, as long as she makes it, Yen won't dislike it." Nurse Fong disagreed. "She's just a little medicine boy who happened to treat Madam's illness twice. It doesn't mean that her medical skills are good." Yao Shi held Nurse Fong's hand and said gently and solemnly, "Nurse, you still don't understand Jiao Jiao. Once you understand her, you will also like her." Nurse Fong secretly shook her head. As servants, how could they talk about liking or not liking their masters? Since she was the madam's daughter, she would also treat her as her own little master in the future. If she had offended her in the past, she would apologize to her in the future. However, that child's heart was too cold. She was afraid that the madam wouldn't be able to warm it up. When Marquis Gu came to find Yao Shi, she was packing things. Marquis Gu asked doubtfully, "What are you doing?" Yao Shi said, "Packing a few sets of clothes for Yen, and sending them over." Her tone could be considered gentle. She still didn't know that Marquis Gu had injured Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao wasn't someone who liked to complain. Even if she did, she wouldn't reveal the grudge between her and Marquis Gu to Yao Shi. Yao Shi had severe hysteria and depression. As a doctor, Gu Jiao would do her best to avoid provoking her. Yao Shi was in a good mood after finding her daughter. Even her attitude towards Marquis Gu was much better. Marquis Gu's heart was comforted, but when he realized the meaning of these words, he wasn't too happy. "You want to send clothes to Yen? Do you really plan on letting Yen live there?" "Can't I?" Yao Shi asked back. Marquis Gu wanted to say something, but stopped. It wasn't easy for Yao Shi to stop giving him attitude. If he didn't know how to behave, Yao Shi would ignore him again. He smiled and said, "You can, but I'm worried that Yen won't be used to living without you." "That's true." Yao Shi nodded. Marquis Gu's heart was filled with joy. Unexpectedly, he heard Yao Shi say, "How about I also move over?" Marquis Gu. Stop. How could you move over?" "Forget it, I shouldn't be in such a rush. I'll scare her." Last time, Yao Shi had felt her daughter's rejection might not be the right word. Either way, her daughter did not seem to have any intentions of accepting her. Marquis Gu let out a long sigh of relief. But before he could completely relax, he heard Yao Shi say, "How about I still go and ask her?" Marquis Gu shook his head like a rattle. Suddenly, Marquis Gu had an idea. Grabbing the portrait on the table, he said to Yao Shi, She suffered for so many years before we appeared. She definitely won't accept us so easily. If we go like this, we'll scare her. Let Yen-er persuade her for a few days first. If you truly miss her, just look at her portrait more often. You saying it like this seems to make a bit of sense. Yao Shi truly did miss her daughter. The portrait was placed on the table. Looking at it day and night, she could never get enough of it. Yao Shi's gaze fell on her daughter's portrait, and her expression became gentle. Marquis, Yao Shi suddenly spoke. What do you think is going on with the red spots on Jiao Jiao's face? Is she sick? She had wanted to ask this question for a long time, but in the past, she and Gu Jiao had been strangers, so she did not ask. Later on, although they were reunited, she did not have a chance to ask. Marquis Gu said, she's not sick. That family said that she was born with it. She had it when she came back from the temple. It was not this obvious when she was young. The older she got, the more the birthmark spread. That's not right. Yao Shi frowned and shook her head. I saw her when she was born. She was no different from a normal baby. If she really had a birthmark, I would have remembered it. Marquis Gu glared. You couldn't have made a mistake again, right? Could it be that the girl was not his, and Yao Shi's flesh and blood? Jiao Jiao is my daughter. I am certain of it, but I do not understand why her face became like this. The midwife had passed away, and the servants had retired. For a while, they did not know where to find the person from that night. Yao Shi pondered for a while, and a thought flashed through her mind. That's not right. There was another person who saw Jiao Jiao. Who? The abbot. The two immediately set out for the temple. After hearing the reason for their visit, the abbot did not feel very well. What are the two benefactors saying? You were mistaken? The girl with the birthmark is the Marquis Fu's daughter? Yao Shi's warm voice carried a trace of urgency. That's right. The abbot should have seen her. She came to the temple to find you twice. If the abbot could not guess who that person was, then it would not make sense. Could it be that the faintly discernible memory was not a drunken dream? Could it be that his hand had trembled and he had placed a large lump of chastity sand on the child's face? Amitabha, sin. The abbot blushed with shame as he explained the matter. The daughters of large families in Zhao would all have their midwives place chastity sand on them when they were born. Yao Shi's servant had told the midwife that Shi Yi had done this. But no one in the countryside would do this. The midwife did not have the skill, and she could not say that she did not know how to do it. She was afraid that she would not be able to get the money, so she went to find the abbot. If the abbot was sober, he would not have agreed. But he had been tricked by his unruly shitty into drinking a mouthful of pear blossom wine. That mouthful had made him drunk. He said that he had never placed chastity sand on them. The midwife said, But you have placed chastity on the monks in the temple. Isn't that about the same? The drunken abbot felt that the midwife's words were very reasonable. Thus he went. Thus his hand trembled. After that, he seemed to have wanted to find his shitty, but he fell to the ground and fell asleep on the way. He slept for 3 days and 3 nights. When he woke up, the first thing he did was to find Yao Shi to apologize. In the end, he saw Yao Shi holding a white and tender baby girl. The baby girl's face was white and clean. Where was the slightest trace of chastity sand? The midwife also went down the mountain, and they did not meet again. This poor monk always thought that it was a dream. Marquis Gu asked, Then what about Su Shi? Did she not notice that there was something on the child's face? The abbot said, Benefactor Su fell into a coma after giving birth and only woke up the next day. This poor monk dares to guess that when she saw the child had already been swapped. It was because Su Shi was in a coma and could not take care of the child that the midwife placed the 2 children in the same room. Gu Jiao was born first, and Gu Jinyu was born 2 to 4 hours later. The child used swaddling clothes from Yao Shi's side, so at first glance, it was easy to confuse. The midwife had also been present, but she had to go to the latrine because of a stomachache. When she returned, the chastity sand had already been placed. Although they could not ask the midwife for confirmation, It was not difficult for Yao Shi and the Marquis to guess what had happened. The child's chastity sand had been placed on the child's face. The midwife knew that something big had happened and found an excuse to leave the mountain that very night. When the servants of the Marquis Manor came to pick up the child, they saw a red birthmark on Gu Jiao's face. The young Miss Face did not have anything. They naturally thought that she was Su Shi's child. After that, the baby girl did not have chastity sand on her arm. Yao Shi thought that it had fallen off because she had not placed it properly. After returning to the capital, she found someone to place it on Gu Jinyu. That should be the entire story. After the husband and wife left, the abbot was unable to calm down for a long time. With a cold expression, he went to his junior brother's courtyard and found a certain monk who was lying under a tree and basking in the sun without a care for his image. He angrily told him about the mistake. "Do you know that you caused me to make a big mistake?" The monk took off the sutra covering his face, revealing a handsome face that was both enchanting and charming. Under the sunlight, a pair of peach blossom eyes sparkled like a pool of spring water. On the stone bench next to his hand, there was a silver mask with the top half of his face. There were not many people who had seen his true appearance. The senior brother of the abbot was one, and the little girl in the forest that day was another. He innocently spread his hands and said with a smile, "How can you blame me? I didn't know that the wine I brewed for the first time would have such a strong after effect." The abbot's anger was not light. "You're still denying it. You lied to me and said it wasn't wine." He sighed and said, "How old was I at the time? I was still a child." "Senior brother, you were fooled by a child. Isn't it because you weren't smart enough? Besides, I didn't do it on purpose. I really wasn't sure if I had successfully brewed the wine. I was a child and couldn't drink, so I could only ask senior brother to try it first." The abbot was furious. "Are you asking me to try the wine or the poison?" The monk said innocently, "Cough, senior brother. Don't expose me. Save me some face." The abbot was about to die of anger. Also, who would call himself a child at the age of 12? Jing Kong is like you. That's why they can torment people so much. At the mention of Jing Kong, the monk was silent for a few seconds, as if he couldn't refute the fact that little Jing Kong was especially tormenting people. In fact, this junior brother was a genius since he was young. He always liked to tinker with some strange little inventions. No one taught him. He would go down the mountain to look and then tinker with them himself when he came back. Wine was not the scariest thing. Once he mixed insect repellent powder, which turned into arsenic and poisoned all the monks in the temple. He almost died himself. The abbot asked him more than once, "How did you grow up to this age?" The monk curled his lips into a smile. "All right, I tricked senior brother abbot once, but you also sold my disciple, so we're even." The abbot said, "Aren't you happier than anyone that Jing Kong is gone? How can we be even?" He spread his hands and sighed faintly. "Senior brother, didn't you say you would save me some face? How can I be that happy? I'm just a little bit happy. The rest is sadness." The abbot coldly glanced at him. "Oh, is that so? Then this old monk will go and bring Jing Kong back." He jumped up like a carp and stood up. "Aya, please don't." After Yao Shi went down the mountain, she had a carriage go to Qingchuan village to deliver things to the two children. There were clothes for Gu Yan and clothes that Yao Shi had chosen for Gu Jiao. Gu Yan thought that they were here to bring him back to the manor, so he refused to come out of the room. Yao Shi had no choice but to give all the clothes to Gu Jiao. Little Jing Kong went to school, so no one stopped Marquis Gu, but he was blocked at the door by a few chickens. A few chirping chickens jumped on the doorstep and lined up in a row, forming a formation. The chickens stared at him like tigers watching their prey, pecking at him as soon as he got close. Marquis Gu wanted to kick them away, but as soon as he lifted his foot, the chickens began to chirp. Yao Shi looked at him. He withdrew his foot, straightened his body, and smiled. "Marquis Gu, in my lifetime, this marquis actually lost to a few chickens." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964282/115509040. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 100. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that cannot be found online will be available here. That's not right. Other people's chickens all chirped. So why were these chickens all chirping? The saddest thing in the world was that the chickens could speak the language of birds, but he still did not know the Turkic language. Yaoshi found that her daughter's residence had been renovated. The roof tiles had been replaced with new ones, and the backyard had been fenced in. There were 2 more rooms built. Jiao Jiao. Yaoshi said to her daughter, who was pouring water into the pot, "Can I also stay here for a few days?" After Gu Jiao finished pouring the water, she placed the wooden bucket to the side and looked at Yaoshi with a bit of confusion. Yaoshi quickly said, "I can help you with the work." Although Yaoshi was born in a large family, her family had declined from a young age. She had not developed a spoiled personality. Of course, if she wanted to do farm work in the countryside, it would be too far-fetched. But if her daughter could endure such hardships, why couldn't she, as her mother, do the same? No need. I can do it myself. Gu Jiao refused. A trace of disappointment flashed through Yaoshi's eyes. She understood that her daughter was not refusing to do the work, but rather her. Then, I can cook. My cooking skills are very good. Didn't you say last time that my desserts were delicious? I will make them for you every day. No need, Gu Jiao said. Then what about washing the clothes? Look at how many people there are in the family. How can you handle it all by yourself? Gu Jiao paused and looked at Yaoshi. She did not say anything and just stared at her. Yaoshi suddenly understood. It was not that her daughter did not need her to work, but she did not need her to live here. It was not that she had not guessed this result, but she did not give up. In the end, she had been too anxious. Yaoshi suppressed the bitterness in her heart and smiled as if nothing had happened. Then I will leave Yan to you. It's not early anymore. You should go do your work. I will also be going back. After saying this, she smiled and turned around. Her expression and tone of voice were impeccable, but her uncontrollable trembling body betrayed her sadness. Gu Jiao looked at her back and said, "It's not your fault." Yaoshi stopped in her tracks. Gu Jiao hesitated for a moment. She was not good with words when it came to expressing her emotions. "It's mine." With her saying it like this, she did not know if Yaoshi would be able to understand. She once had terrible parents, which made her reject all parents in the world. After growing up, she had her own life. She thought that she did not care anymore, but Yaoshi's appearance made her realize that the hole in her heart had never healed. She could accept Xiao Lulang, little Jing Kong, and her great-aunt and Gu Yan because they would not become her parents. But she could not say these words to Yaoshi. Yaoshi looked at Gu Jiao without blinking. In the past, she had believed that her daughter did not accept her because she could not forget Gu San Lang and his wife. Now, she was not so sure. Something must have happened to her daughter, but since her daughter was not willing to talk about it, she could not bear to ask. Yaoshi reluctantly got into the carriage to return to the villa. Gu Jiao continued to light the fire to cook. The rice steamed slowly. She did not know if it was Yaoshi's arrival that made her remember something she did not want to remember. She thought of herself when she was 2 years old. At that time, she was wearing thin pajamas and holding a doll as she stood barefoot in the cold winter night. She was forced out of bed and was not even given a pair of shoes to wear. Her parents had a fierce argument over a very small matter, but the argument had gotten out of hand. In the end, the argument had landed on her head. She was pushed around and fell a few times. Her hand was broken. At first, the man who called her father left in a fit of anger. Later, the woman who called her mother also left. She was abandoned in the crowded square. She watched as one giant after another walked past her. She felt like a tiny ant. "Mother, woo-wah, mother." She was frightened. She burst into tears. But the woman who called her mother did not come back. The man who called her father also did not appear. The rice was not ready so quickly. Gu Jiao first gave Gu Yan 2 sunny-side-up eggs. Gu Jiao went to his room to call him. Did the two of them leave? Gu Yan pricked up his ears to ask. They left. Gu Jiao said. Only then did Gu Yan open the door. However, he did not open it completely. He only opened a small crack and stuck his head out to look around. After confirming that his father and mother were not around, he confidently walked out. The matriarch woke up. Gu Jiao also cooked a bowl for her and then told her about Gu Yan's stay. The matriarch looked at the delicate young man in front of her. She did not know why, but she felt like she had seen him somewhere before. That's right, the emperor really liked the twins in Marquis Xianping's Fu. He had consort Shu bring the twins to pay respects to the Empress Dowager. So the matriarch had indeed seen little Gu Yan before. However, the matriarch did not like children. She casually gave them some gifts and dismissed them. Now, she could not even remember this. Little Gu Yan was still young at that time and did not remember what the Empress Dowager looked like. Thus, when the two of them sat across from each other, neither of them recognized the other. The matriarch looked at the bowl of sugar water in her own bowl, then looked at Gu Yan's bowl. She smacked her lips. I'll exchange with you. The matriarch wanted to avoid certain foods. Gu Jiao's bowl of sugar water was not sweet enough. Gu Yan's bowl was sweet. Gu Yan did not know the truth, so he generously exchanged with her. After the exchange with Gu Yan, the matriarch ate the sugar water egg of her dreams. Oh, it was so delicious that she wanted to cry. Before Gu Yan came to the house, the matriarch liked Gu Shaoshun the most. This was because Gu Shaoshun was the easiest to trick. She could help her save a few candied fruits at any time. As for Xiao Lulang and little Jingkong, one was too smart and the other too principled. The matriarch could not trick them. Gu Yan's battle prowess was obviously stronger than silly Gu. The first day he came, he made the matriarch eat the sugar water egg. For the sake of her sugar water egg business, the matriarch decided that she would protect this young man. After Madame Yao and Marquis Gu went down the mountain, they kept feeling that something was wrong. However, they kept thinking about going to see Gu Jiao and did not realize it. It was only when they returned to the villa and took out Gu Jiao's portrait that Madame Yao's mind buzzed. Marquis. She stared blankly at the birthmark on her daughter's face in the portrait. What's wrong? Marquis Gu came over to look with her, but he did not see anything. Madame Yao said worriedly, the abbot said that Jiao Jiao's birthmark is the mark of virginity, but Jiao Jiao is married. Why did they? Could it be that they are not on good terms? Madame Yao was really complaining about the Gu family now. They married Jiao Jiao off so early. If she was in the Marquis household, I would definitely keep her for a few more years. In the country of Zhao, women became of marriageable age at the age of 15. Women from wealthy families usually only began to choose their husbands after they became of marriageable age. Marquis Gu did not have Madame Yao's worries. After all, he did not intend to acknowledge this marriage from the start. A poor scholar was not worthy of his daughter. When he returned, he would give that poor boy some money to send him away. When he went to the capital, who would know that the girl had married before? When the time comes, I'll just find her a good man of equal social status. Although that girl's character and appearance were far from Jinyu's, she was still the daughter of the Marquis household. She would not be unable to marry. On the other side, Xiao Lulang, who did not know that he would be sent away by his father-in-law with a sum of money, had just finished school and was about to go to the nearby school to pick up little Jingkong. But he had only taken a few steps when he was blocked by a carriage. This was not an ordinary carriage. The wheels were different from those seen on the streets. They were bigger, taller, and sturdier. The body of the carriage was made of high-quality yellow pear wood. The silk on the canopy was bright and vibrant. There were also 8 large luminous pearls inlaid. Each pearl was worth 100 taels of gold. The coachman was a black-clothed man wearing a bamboo hat. His arms were thick, his figure was tall, and his aura was strong. The horse was also very powerful. It was a completely black Mongolian horse, as if it had experienced the slaughter of the battlefield. Its entire body exuded a murderous aura, scaring the nearby carriages so much that none of the horses dared to approach it. A scholarly man walked down from the carriage. He was about the same age as the second master of the Rejuvenation Hall, but his aura was far from what an ordinary person could compare to. From time to time, people around looked over. The man did not seem to care at all. He walked in front of Xiao Lulang and carefully looked at Xiao Lulang. He smiled and said, "Are you Xiao Lulang?" Xiao Lulang looked vigilant. "Who are you?" The man raised his hand and smiled gently. "Don't be afraid. My surname is Lu. My master asked me to come and find you." After he finished speaking, he took out a token from his waist and said to Xiao Lulang, "Do you recognize this token?" Private school. The students of Meng Shui class were dismissed from school. The teachers and the students all heaved a sigh of relief. The students carried their school bags and ran out of the classroom with pale faces, as if there was a ferocious beast chasing after them. But the teacher could not leave because little Jing Kong did not leave. The teacher took the 108th deep breath of the day. If his son was not a student of the Qianxiang Academy, he would have expelled this annoying little guy 100 times. Although little Jing Kong was always chattering at home, he was actually very quiet in class. However, he didn't make a sound, but once he did, he would take the lives of the teachers. Little Jing Kong had a strong background. His brother-in-law was the direct disciple that Dean Li had unilaterally announced. Driving him out was equivalent to Dean Li making things difficult for his son. But the teacher's eyes hurt when he looked at him. Little Jing Kong held the 3-character classic with both hands. He pretended to be chanting, but glanced outside from time to time. "Jing Kong, is your brother-in-law not here yet?" the teacher in the lecture asked. "Yes." Little Jing Kong responded in a low voice. The teacher said, "Do you want me to take you to the entrance?" Little Jing Kong snorted. "He doesn't care if he comes or not. I don't want to see him." That being said, the number of times he glanced outside with his small eyes had obviously increased. "Bad brother-in-law doesn't want me anymore, does he? Just like those families who had promised to adopt me but abandoned me in the end." Jing Kong. The teacher came to him and patted him on the shoulder. "Your brother-in-law is here. It's finally here. It's finally here. Master's nightmare for a day is over." "Really?" Little Jing Kong stood up and quickly realized that he had overreacted. He quickly adjusted himself and put on a calm expression. He packed up his things and said goodbye to the teacher. Then he went to meet Xiao Lulang outside the private school. "You are late today." After getting on the ox cart, little Jing Kong said to Xiao Lulang with dissatisfaction, "Did you not study hard again and got asked to stay by Teacher Zhang?" Xiao Lulang glanced at him in surprise. "You know that my teacher's surname is Zhang? Xiao Shan told me." Little Jing Kong thought to himself, "I know a lot of things. Not only do I know that your teacher's surname is Zhang, but I also know that Gu Dashuan's teacher's surname is Chun and your dean's surname is Li." Little Jing Kong said seriously, "You haven't answered my question. Were you asked to stay by the teacher? Don't be arrogant and complacent just because you are a scholar. Don't forget that you are still a student in Class B." Well, he even knew about Class B now. Xiao Lulang looked at him with anger and amusement. "Why are you so talkative?" Little Jing Kong put his hands on his hips. "You are the one who is late, but you don't allow me to say anything. You adults are so unreasonable." Xiao Lulang said, "Do you mean that you are reasonable?" Little Jing Kong crossed his arms. Of course I am. Xiao Lulang raised his eyebrows and said, "Then who was the one who talked back to the teacher in class and embarrassed him?" Little Jinkong said seriously, "That's because he was wrong. I was correcting him." Xiao Lulang laughed and said, "Then who was the one who skipped class in the middle of class?" Little Jinkong said sternly, "He wanted to hit me. I didn't do anything wrong. He is not allowed to punish a child who is not in the wrong." The teacher had a ruler, and he would hit a disobedient child twice in the palm of his hand. Little Jinkong questioned the teacher in class and argued with him until his face turned red. The teacher was so angry that he took the ruler and wanted to punish him. In the end, he carried his school bag and ran away from the private school. Xiao Lulang said calmly, "Since you think you are reasonable, why don't we bring this matter to Jiao Jiao and let her be the judge?" Little Jinkong did not say anything. Although he firmly believed that he was on the side of justice, at the same time he instinctively felt that Jiao Jiao would not agree with his way of doing things. Xiao Lulang laughed and said, "Why are you not saying anything? Are you afraid that you are not reasonable, or are you afraid that Jiao Jiao is not reasonable?" Little Jinkong said righteously, "Of course Jiao Jiao is reasonable. I am also right. However, if they are not convinced by Jiao Jiao's reason and my reason, it is a matter of reason, not a problem between me and Jiao Jiao." Xiao Lulang, "I don't know you very well, but I was almost confused by you." The two of them arrived at the village while arguing. The two of them got off the ox cart and walked toward their house. As soon as they entered the house, they found that there was another person in the house. This person was dressed neatly and looked good. At first glance, they could tell that he was not a villager. "Who are you?" Little Jinkong tilted his head and asked. "I am Jiao Jiao's younger brother," Guyan emphasized, "biological younger brother." Little Jinkong's small body swayed. No matter how much he thought about it, he forgot that Jiao Jiao had a biological younger brother. Didn't this mean that his position was higher than Gu Xiaoshuan's? Little Jinkong could not help but feel a strong sense of crisis in his heart. Xiao Lulang was not afraid of making things worse. He patted the little monk's head with a faint smile and said, "Ah, who is Jiao Jiao's most beloved younger brother?" Little Jinkong decisively removed the evil claws of his bad brother-in-law. He secretly warned himself not to panic. So what if he was his biological younger brother? He came first. Moreover, he had his own advantages, didn't he? First of all, he was small, cute, and adorable. Coincidentally, Xuan Xiang brought a few roasted sweet potatoes over at this time. She also noticed that there was an additional beautiful young man in the house. Compared to her previous self, Xuan Xiang was calmer now. After all, this family was strange. They acted as if nothing had happened to the daughter of the Marquis mansion. Even if the Empress Dowager appeared, she would not be surprised. Gu Yan looked at her for a while and took the initiative to greet her. "You are Sister Xue from next door, right? I heard my sister mention you before. I am Gu Yan, Jiao Jiao's biological younger brother." His voice was as clean as his temperament. His tone was very gentle, and he was smiling wholeheartedly, revealing a trace of innocence and brilliance unique to a young man. Xuan Xiang was completely stunned by his cuteness. Little Jinkong's small fists pounded his small chest angrily. He is already so old, but he is still acting cute. He is even better than me. Shameless. The secret guards on the roof could not bear to watch anymore. How could he be so shameless? Didn't he know what the Marquis mansion was like? Could he be a green tea just because he was painted green? Little Jinkong held his breath, and even his dinner was not delicious. After taking a bath, little Jinkong suddenly thought of a great advantage. He was a monk, and a monk knew how to chant scriptures. He could go and chant scriptures for Jiao Jiao. Master said that he was the best little monk in the world at chanting scriptures. Jiao Jiao would definitely like to listen to him chanting scriptures. Little Jinkong took out his small wooden fish from the small box, put on the wooden fish, hung the prayer beads, and valiantly went to find Gu Jiao. Unexpectedly, as soon as he arrived at the backyard, he heard a mellow and melodious sound of a flute. The sound of the flute sounded like weeping and complaining. Even little Jing Kong, who did not understand music, could hear a faint trace of sadness. Little Jing Kong covered his little mouth. After the song ended, little Jing Kong's eyes were filled with tears. Sob, 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 this was the best song in the world. It was better than a monk chanting scriptures 100 times, no 1,000 times. In the second round, little Jing Kong lost again. However, little Jing Kong did not give up. He still had one last trump card, and that was he knew how to raise chickens. He was the super little Jing Kong who could raise 7 chickens. He did not believe that Gu Yen was better than him. Little young master, I brought your dog here. Shadow Guard handed the little puppy that he had brought from the villa to Gu Yan's arms. Then he disappeared in a flash. Gu Yan and Gu Jiao played with the little puppy in the backyard. Little Jing Kong lived in the mountains all year round. There were no dogs in the mountains. He had only seen a few when he came to the village, but those were all fierce, big, yellow dogs, unlike the soft and cute little puppy in front of him. Woof! Little Jing Kong staggered. It could even bark. Gu Jiao threw a small bone into the vegetable garden. The little puppy ran over and picked up the bone, then put it in front of Gu Jiao. Little Jing Kong already felt that it was difficult to raise chickens. He did not expect Gu Yen to know how to raise dogs. How did he manage to do such a difficult thing? Little Jing Kong's logic was that in all things, the small ones were easy to raise, but the big ones were not. For example, he was easy to raise, as long as he was full. But his brother-in-law was not. He had to worry about his exams and walking every day. It's too difficult for me. Little Jing Kong finally turned into a little salted fish, stranded on the bed in the west room without a soul. When Xiao Lulang finished cleaning up the woodshed and went back to the west room, little Jing Kong was already snoring with his limbs in the air. Xiao Lulang covered him with a quilt, then put his little wooden fish, little Buddhist beads, and little Buddhist scriptures back into his box one by one. After doing that, he went to the central room. Gu Jiao had just entered the central room. When she saw him, she asked softly, "Are you asleep?" Xiao Lulang nodded and said softly, "Yes, I'm asleep. Where's Gu Yan?" Gu Jiao said, "He's asleep too." The two of them sat on the chair and breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. It felt a bit like a pair of parents asking, "Is little Bao asleep?" "Yes, what about the Bao?" The Bao is asleep too. Then, as parents, they could finally start doing their own things. Gu Jiao said to him, "Go for rehabilitation." There was a cobblestone path in the backyard for him to do rehabilitation. Even if she knew that it was caused by a knot in his heart, she could not give up any effort. Xiao Lulang said self-deprecatingly, "I can't walk even if I practice." Gu Jiao pointed at his legs and said seriously, "At least the muscles won't degenerate. If you want to walk one day, they can support your dream and take you anywhere." Xiao Liulang's heart was touched. But the next second, he laughed at himself again. Dream? He had no dream. But her sentence, "if you want to walk," sounded ordinary, but it seemed to have another meaning. Did she mean let him walk or let him walk? Xiao Lulang looked at her quietly. Gu Jiao did not explain further. She smiled and said, "Let's go." She took his crutches and helped him to the backyard. It was late at night, and the whole village fell asleep. The moonlight was quiet. She held his arm and walked step by step on the cobblestone path in the backyard. The path looked very long, but they accidentally reached the end. She wondered if it would be the same between him and her. The next day, Xiao Lulang woke up early to go to the academy. The private school in Little Jing Kong was closed today, so Gu Jiao accompanied him to the ox cart. It was still early. It was rare that Little Jing Kong did not have to go to school, so Gu Jiao thought that he would sleep early. Who knew that he would wake up right after Xiao Lulang left? He first went to the backyard to practice the horse stance for a while, then practiced the skyward stirrup for a while. He raised his feet above his head and asked Gu Jiao to put a bowl of water on his feet. The little monk looked serious and cute when he practiced. When he finished practicing, Gu Jiao had just cleaned up the kitchen and was about to go up the mountain to pick some mushrooms. It was rare that Gu Yen was still sleeping, so the little monk could have the Jiao Jiao all to himself. Naturally, he would not let go of this opportunity and asked to go up the mountain with Jiao Jiao. Gu Jiao agreed. The two of them carried their own small basket. As soon as they opened the door, they saw a carriage parked in front of their house. A kind-looking young man walked down from the carriage. He saluted Gu Jiao and said with a smile, "Is this Xiao Liulong's house?" "Who are you?" Gu Jiao asked. The young man said with a pleasant expression, "Are you Mrs. Xiao? My housekeeper asked me to invite Mrs. Xiao to town for a chat." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/11548272. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikaj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 101. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. In order to prove his identity, the young man took out a token of his mansion. It was not a bronze token, but an iron token engraved with lines. Gu Jiao had not been here for a long time. Usually, she was in contact with the villagers in the village and had little contact with the big families. However, she also knew that such tokens were strictly controlled in the Zhao kingdom. Ordinary wealthy families could only use wooden plates, and above that were fishbone plates. Only officials could use iron plates. However, the iron tokens of officials had the emblem of the Zhao kingdom on the back, but this iron token obviously did not. So, there was only one possibility. Although the other party was not an official, his background might be even more powerful than an official. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong looked at Gu Jiao with confusion. He was still young and did not understand what was going on. Gu Jiao touched his little head and said to the young man, "Okay, I'll go with you." Then she said to little Jing Kong, "Let's go find Grand Aunt." No. Little Jing Kong shook his head like a rattle drum. These days, he had been going to school every day and had no time to play with Jiao Jiao. He finally had a day off, and he wanted to be Jiao Jiao's little tail. Gu Jiao looked at his big black eyes full of expectation and finally did not refuse. "Okay." The young man smiled and made a gesture. "Please." Gu Jiao went next door to tell Xuaningxiang and asked her to take care of the house. Then she and little Jing Kong sat in the carriage prepared by the young man. The young man himself rode the horse and followed them. The carriage soon arrived at the only tea house in the town. The owner of this tea house was from the provincial capital. It was said that he had a powerful background. Usually, people who visited the tea house were famous people in the town. However, the tea house was empty today. It seemed that it had been booked. The other party was really generous. Gu Jiao and little Jing Kong were led into an elegant and unique room by the young man. The young man ordered the servants to serve tea and snacks. He seemed to be very attentive to Gu Jiao. If it were a normal person, they would have been smug, but Gu Jiao was very calm. As the saying goes, one does not visit a temple without a cause. There must be a demon behind this abnormal situation. With her current status, she could not afford to be served like this. The young man said, "Madam Xiao, please wait for a moment. I will go and ask Steward Zhou to come over." Gu Jiao nodded. The young man's politeness to her was actually superficial. Gu Jiao could feel the contempt in his bones. However, Gu Jiao did not force him. Some people went blind at a young age. It was his loss, not hers. The young man really didn't think much of a village woman, especially when Gu Jiao was so ugly. He was even more disdainful of her. However, the steward had told him that he must be very polite to Madame Shotsai and must not show any disrespect. The young man turned to ask his steward. Steward Joe came quickly. After all, he was a steward. He was much better than the young man in terms of facial expression. At least, the smile on his face looked very sincere. Little Jing Kong took a plate of snacks from the table and handed it to Little Jing Kong. Go and play in the yard for a while. I have something to talk to someone. Okay. Little Jing Kong jumped down from the wooden stool, took the plate of snacks, and went out quietly. The window was open. Gu Jiao could see the whole yard from where she was sitting. Little Jing Kong found a small stone stool and sat down. He swung his short legs while eating. He probably noticed that Gu Jiao was looking at him. He turned his head and smiled sweetly at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao also smiled. He was so happy that he flew up and continued to eat the snacks. Steward Joe patiently waited for them to finish their interaction. Then he stepped forward and bowed to Gu Jiao. Nice to meet you, Madame Xiao. Gu Jiao didn't get up to salute him. She wasn't flattered. She just nodded calmly. Steward Joe was a little surprised. He sized Gu Jiao up from head to toe. It was as if she was just an ordinary village girl in terms of clothes and appearance. In fact, because of her appearance, she should feel even more inferior and embarrassed than ordinary women. However, she didn't feel that way. Instead, she gave people an illusion that she was unattainable. Steward Joe calmed down and said to Gu Jiao, Madame Xiao, I'm from the Lin family in the provincial capital. Have you heard of the Lin family? No. Gu Jiao said concisely. Steward Joe was surprised. Was this girl a local? How come she hadn't heard of the Lin family? The Lin family was the local tyrant in Yuzhou. Even the prefecture overseer had to give the Lin family some face. The Lin family was originally in the salt transportation business. In the early days, they sold illegal salt and established their own salt gang. The imperial court sent an army to attack the salt gang. In the end, both sides suffered losses. Later, the imperial court adopted a policy of enlistment and incorporated the salt gang. Although they were incorporated, the salt gang was still managed by the Lin family. It was just that the silver earned from the salt transportation was equally divided with the imperial court. Moreover, the salt gang was no longer allowed to oppress the common people and rob them of their wealth. When necessary, they had to assist the imperial court in eliminating water bandits. Steward Joe gave a general explanation of the Lin family's background. Then he began to wait. Gu Jiao was shocked. In the end, Gu Jiao was still very calm. Was this girl stupid? It's good that she was stupid. Steward Joe smiled and said to Gu Jiao, I came to clear Springtown this time because of your reputation. Little brother Xiao hasn't congratulated Madame Xiao on passing the exam. This is a congratulatory gift. I hope Madame Xiao will kindly accept it. As he spoke, he gave a look to the servant outside the room. A maidservant came in with a heavy box. After putting the box on the table, Steward Joe waved his hand and let the maidservant withdraw. Steward Joe opened the box, revealing the shining silver inside. Gu Jiao's gaze fell on the silver ingots. She asked indifferently, Steward Joe, if you have something to say it directly. A country person seeing so much silver was unexpectedly so calm. Steward Joe became more and more suspicious of this Madame Xiao. However, he didn't show it on his face. He smiled and said, Madame Xiao is really a straightforward person. To tell you the truth, little brother Xiao took the first place in both the county and capital examinations. His results are outstanding. After my family's master read his essay, he very much admires little brother Xiao's talent. He wants to invite little brother Xiao to the provincial capital's Lin family as a guest. Gu Jiao didn't hurry to respond. Steward Joe continued, My family's master sincerely wants to make friends with little brother Xiao. He also asks Madame Xiao to make things convenient. Gu Jiao said indifferently, Why don't you go directly to him? Or did you say you went to him, but he refused? Steward Joe choked. Gu Jiao said, It seems like he refused. After saying this, Gu Jiao stood up and left. Steward Zhou was stunned. So direct and efficient? She didn't even give him a chance to bargain? Was she still a woman? No, was she still a person? Steward Zhou hurriedly called out to her, Madam Xiao. Madam Xiao, please wait. Do you think I'm not sincere enough? These are only congratulatory gifts. Everything can be discussed. Gu Jiao still didn't move. Steward Zhou caught up with her and said with a head full of sweat, seeing that the provincial examination is only a few days away, little brother Xiao will go to the provincial capital. Why don't you stay in the provincial capital first? Our Lin family will take care of everything for little brother Xiao. The date of the provincial examination was indeed close. Gu Jiao paused and turned around to look at him. Then what does he need to do? Pack up his things, move in, and leave after the examination? Steward Zhou was almost choked by Gu Jiao's straightforwardness. It's like this. My family's young master is also about to take the provincial examination. I'd like to ask little brother Xiao to give some pointers to my family's young master during his short stay. Gu Jiao said, Oh, so it's to be a teacher. But since he already refused. No. He didn't refuse. Gu Jiao looked at him strangely. Steward Zhou said embarrassedly, to be exact, he didn't refuse my request. Originally, when Steward Zhou went to Qianxiang Academy to find Xiao Lulang, he said that as long as Xiao Lulang guaranteed that the Lin family's young master could pass the provincial examination, their master would reward little brother Xiao with 2,000 taels of silver. Although he knew that provincial officials were very valuable in ancient times, he didn't expect it to be this valuable. Wasn't it better to be a rich second generation that ate and drank for free? Did he have to break his head to take the provincial examination? This had always been the Lin family's sore point. To put it nicely, the Lin family came from the salt gang. To put it bluntly, they were salt merchants. They had once been in cahoots with pirates and snakes. The Lin family was so poor that they only had money left. Why did the imperial court recruit the Lin family? Wasn't it because the Lin family's descendants were useless and would decline in 2 or 3 generations? At that time, the salt gang would completely fall into the hands of the imperial court. It wasn't that the Lin family didn't expect the family's crisis. It was just that they looked brave at that time, but in reality, they didn't have the strength to fight against the imperial court. Even if they fought with their backs to the river, at most they would kill a few thousand of the imperial court soldiers. However, the Lin family wouldn't have a single person left alive. Being recruited would at least give the Lin family several decades of stability. The Lin family hoped that their descendants would have some prospects and be able to support the Lin family in the future. As a matter of fact, after the Lin family had produced more than a dozen good-for-nothings, they finally had a 6th son who passed the county-level examination. The 6th young master was born from a concubine, but he was diligent and studious. Master Lin and Madam Lin both valued him highly. The entire Lin family treated the 6th young master as a treasure. In order to nurture him, the Lin family had spent a lot of money. Xiao Lulang was recommended by a teacher in the Lin family. The Lin family's master was a boorish man. How could he know anything about 8-legged writing? However, he trusted the teacher from the capital. The teacher said that Xiao Yolang's literary talent was better than any other teacher in the Lin family. With him teaching the 6th young master, he would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896/115477863. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com Chapter 102. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Steward Joe said, "I thought about it last night and felt that the request I made to little brother Shao was too much. As the saying goes, the master can show you the way, but the cultivation depends on the person. Whether my master can pass the provincial level examination or not depends on his own luck. However, we sincerely want to ask little brother Shao for advice. My master said that as long as little brother Shao is willing to go to the provincial capital, everything else is negotiable." Gu Jiao looked at him and said, "In other words, it's not our fault if he doesn't pass the examination?" Steward Joe hurriedly said, "Not bad, not bad." Gu Jiao said, "Money?" Steward Joe said, "Give it to him. Give it to him when he goes to the provincial capital. I won't go back on my words." Gu Jiao said, "You can go and talk to my husband directly." Steward Joe said helplessly, "Why didn't I go?" "But little brother, Shao doesn't want to talk to us anymore. I hope Lady Shao can do me a favor and take this money first. It's all yours whether he passes the examination or not." Gu Jiao took the brocade box from him and said coldly, "It doesn't matter if it's money or not. I just want to ask for your help." Steward Joe, "Can you not say greedy for money in such a fresh and refined way?" Steward Joe thanked her profusely. Gu Jiao repeatedly emphasized that she was just a messenger and not a lobbyist. Steward Joe smiled and said, "Of course. Of course." Gu Jiao took the money and little Jing Kong back to the village. She counted the money. It was a total of 500 taels. This messenger fee was really not small. After Xiao Lulang finished school that night, Gu Jiao told him about her meeting with Steward Joe during the day. She didn't hide a word and didn't add any details. Xiao Lulang listened and frowned. Of course, he wasn't complaining that Gu Jiao went to see Steward Joe, but he didn't expect Steward Joe to not give up and come to his house. He said, "In the future, if someone comes to visit, don't leave with them easily. Steward Joe is not a difficult person to deal with. But what if?" Gu Jiao looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. "You seem to be worried about something. Could it be that someone will come looking for you?" Xiao Lulang opened his mouth but hesitated. After a while, he said, "I just want you to be careful." "Got it." Gu Jiao smiled, then looked at the box of silver on the table and said, "What do you plan to do about the Lin family?" Xiao Lulang was aware of the Lin family situation. It was exactly as what Steward Joe had said. If no one in the family could become an official, no one would be able to protect the Lin family after 30 years. Of course, the Lin family could buy an official position, but the position they bought wouldn't be high enough, and no one would dare to sell the position to the Lin family. Thus, the imperial examination was the only way out for the Lin family. He had heard that in order to have more useful sons, the master of the Lin family had almost turned himself into a breeding pig. Xiao Lulang muttered to himself for a moment and said, "If you don't insist on results, there's no harm in going." After all, it was 2,000 taels of silver. Gu Jiao also felt that it was feasible. The provincial capital was farther than the prefectural capital. If it was the provincial examination, they would have to leave more than a month in advance. It was hard to say if they would be able to find a suitable place to settle down. If they lived in the Lin Manor, it would be much more convenient. Moreover, if they went earlier, they would be able to acclimatize sooner and wait for the exhausted. Gu Jiao asked, "Will it delay your studies?" Xiao Lulang said, "It won't." Gu Jiao remembered that the principal had said that Xiao Lulang was an extremely intelligent person. It was just that he didn't want to go to the capital for the imperial examination. Letting him travel around wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Gu Jiao nodded. "Then it's settled." Xiao Lulang said, "Yes." She originally thought that the matter of going to the Lin family was settled. Unexpectedly, that night, Gu Jiao had a dream. She dreamed that Xiao Lulang had agreed to Steward Joe and was escorted to the provincial capital by Steward Joe and the Lin family's guards. The Lin family was indeed sincere in seeking advice and didn't plan to play any tricks. This matter was supposed to be foolproof, but man proposes and God disposes. Halfway through the journey, Xiao Liulang's group ran into a once-in-a-decade rainstorm. The relay station that Xiao Lulang lived in was flooded, and the group was separated by the water. Xiao Lulang hugged a piece of driftwood, and his life was saved, but he fell seriously ill. By the time Steward Zhou and the others found him and brought him back to the Lin family, he had already lost a layer of skin. Fortunately, they had set off early. Even if they were delayed for so long, there were still 2 months before the provincial examination. Xiao Lulang recuperated in the Lin family while tutoring the Lin family's 6th young master. The Lin family's 6th young master was a well-behaved person. He wasn't extremely smart, but he was diligent and persevering. Xiao Lulang got along well with him. However, something big happened when the provincial examination was approaching. A cousin of the Lin family came to the Lin family for a short stay. She was the niece of the Lin family's matriarch. That cousin of the Lin family fell in love with Xiao Lulang at first sight. Xiao Lulang was still a cripple, but she still fell in love with him. It could be seen that this man's appearance was very troublesome. However, she was a girl with status and couldn't recommend herself to sleep with him. Coincidentally, the Lin family's 6th young master had caught a cold. The cousin of the Lin family's 6th young master came up with a plan and persuaded her aunt, "Cousin probably won't be able to pass the examination like this. Why don't we let Xiao Lulang take the examination instead? Cousin will write his name and he will write cousin's name. This way, the chances of him passing the examination will be higher than cousin's." The cousin of the Lin family told her aunt that she was willing to be Xiao Liulang's concubine to express her gratitude. Madame Lin was an experienced person. How could she not see through it? However, these words did indeed strike a chord in her heart. Although she didn't give birth to the Lin family's 6th young master, this concerned the future of the entire Lin family. Madame Lin agreed. Xiao Lulang sternly refused and even reprimanded the two of them. Madame Lin had an attitude of giving it a try. If it didn't work, then forget it. However, that cousin of the Lin family was a ruthless character. In a fit of anger, she actually drugged Xiao Lulang. In all fairness, that cousin of the Lin family's 6th young master wasn't bad. It could even be said that she was as beautiful as a flower. However, even so, Xiao Lulang relied on his strong willpower to overcome the effects of the aphrodisiac. However, he also fell ill from then on. After waking up, Gu Jiao was furious. What a messy cousin of the Lin family. How dare she have such a bad idea about Xiao Lulang? She even used such a despicable method to harm him and the good fortune of the rest of his life. Moreover, it wasn't only his good fortune. This was intolerable. It seemed that he couldn't go to the Lin family's mansion. That cousin of the Lin family was a frequent visitor. As long as Xiao Lulang moved in, he would definitely meet her no matter how careful he was. The sky was slightly bright. Gu Yan and old Madame Lin were still sleeping in their rooms. Gu Jiao was sitting in the central room, eating breakfast with Xiao Lulang and little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong was the first to finish eating. Then he went back to the west room to pack his bag. Gu Jiao took a sip of porridge and hesitated about how to start the conversation with him. He got up early in the morning and packed his luggage. Gu Jiao looked at the 2 bags on the chair with a subtle expression. "Well," she said calmly, "I've thought about the Lin family's matter. Do you want to reconsider it?" "What's wrong?" Xiao Lulang looked at her confusedly. Gu Jiao said seriously, "You'll be gone for so long. What will happen to your family?" Xiao Lulang was stunned. "We don't farm." Gu Jiao continued to be serious. "We don't farm, but there are old and young at home. It's hard for me to take care of them alone. Occasionally, I have to go up the mountain." Xiao Lulang was confused. He didn't seem to be of much help at home. He didn't do much work at all. The main thing was that she rushed to finish it. Logically speaking, she should be more relaxed when he wasn't at home. "Gu Jiao, I can't always trouble Xuaning Xiang." "Xiao Lulang, how about hiring a maid?" The family could afford to hire a maid now. He was a man, so it wasn't convenient for him to live under the same roof. But if he wasn't there, there would be no need to avoid arousing suspicion. Gu Jiao, I'm not used to strangers living in my house. This still couldn't convince Xiao Lulang. After all, she was the one who expressed her desire for him to go to the provincial capital yesterday. Gu Jiao also understood, so she gave him another dose of medicine. Also, I heard from Gu Yan that there are many beautiful daughters in the Lin family. Who knows if you will flirt with flowers and grass when you go there. Find me a few sisters. Gu Yan was the young master of the Marquis's household. He was well informed, so it wasn't surprising that he had heard about the Lin family. Moreover, Xiao Lulang wouldn't ask Gu Yan to confirm if he had instilled any strange thoughts in his sister. Xiao Lulang looked deeply at Gu Jiao. So you're jealous? Gu Jiao, can I say no? Xiao Lulang scooped a spoonful of millet porridge. I know I won't go. No way? So easy to talk to? Gu Jiao glanced at him. I just mentioned it casually. The decision is up to you. It's 2,000 taels of silver. Don't you feel the pinch? Xiao Lulang said lightly. It seems like you feel the pinch. Gu Jiao was embarrassed. Is it that obvious? Then she said without changing her expression, actually, it doesn't matter if it's money or not. The main thing is to save a determined young man. Forget it, it's useless to talk about it now. If he didn't go to the Lin family, how could he earn the money? Xiao Lulang looked at her and pretended as if nothing had happened. He probably didn't know that his little mouth was pouting so hard that it could hang a pot of oil. Xiao Lulang and little Jing Kong went to town. He first sent little Jing Kong to the private school, then went to Qinxiang Academy. Steward Zhou had been waiting for a long time. When he saw Xiao Lulang, he greeted him with a smile. Scholar Xiao, what's your decision? Xiao Lulang said lightly, I can teach your son, but I have a condition. Steward Zhou was overjoyed. Don't mention a condition. Even 10 conditions will do. Xiao Lulang said, I won't go to the provincial capital. If your son really wants to teach, let him come here. I'll arrange for him to enter the academy and sit with me. Steward Zhou opened his mouth. How about I add some money? Xiao Lulang said lightly, it's useless even if you add money. If he comes, I'll teach him. If he can't come, I'll find someone else. Digression. Beauty Xiao, what should I do if my wife is jealous? I'm waiting online, it's urgent. I mainly want to show off to you guys. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_89642826115451113. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 103. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Not long after Xiao Lulang left, Marquis Gu came looking for her. He came behind Madame Yao's back, mainly because he was worried about Gu Yan. He always felt that this kind of remote place would spoil his precious son, so he hoped to bring Gu Yan back. The one who opened the door was Gu Yan. When Gu Yan saw his father, he quickly closed the door. Marquis Gu was so angry that he stomped his feet, but the door didn't open even when he shouted. When he finally got to the back door, Gu Yan had already bolted the door in his room. Marquis Gu, who was so angry that his teeth were chattering. The little chicks hadn't started their day's activities and were quietly locked in the chicken coop. Marquis Gu found Gu Jiao, who was busy in the backyard, and pointed at the tightly shut door. You don't care about him. Gu Jiao looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot, her eyes direct and cold. Ignoring him, she took out a shining axe from the woodshed. Marquis Gu gasped, You. What are you doing? Are you planning to kill? Before he could finish, he heard a loud crash. Gu Jiao had split a piece of wood in half. The wood was split into two halves. The cut was complete, and the force was even. With one look, he could tell that she was an expert in chopping people. No, chopping firewood. Marquis Gu swallowed his saliva and found his voice, after a while, Your place is not suitable for Yen to live in. He grew up spoiled and spoiled. His food and clothes are not comparable to a normal person's. His body is finally getting better. If you don't take care, I'm afraid that his illness will act up again. You're his sister, don't harm him. If you two really want to be together, then move back to the villa. The villa is so big, you can live in whichever courtyard you want. If you don't like the current one, you can have the servants build a new one. He swore that this was the most sincere and earnest words he had ever said to this girl. He had made a huge concession. So he should be moved now, right? He didn't yell at her, didn't hit her, and spoke to her so nicely. She should be satisfied, right? But who would have thought that Gu Jiao was not moved at all? She only said indifferently, He's living very well here. Marquis Gu said angrily, Look at this poor place. How could he possibly live well? Gu Jiao chopped down with her axe. The manner of the Marquis and the manner are so good. How did he recover from his illness all these years? Marquis Gu was rendered speechless. That's right, Gu Yan had been living in the most luxurious house, eating the most exquisite delicacies, and having a large group of servants. However, his body was still deteriorating. It was only after encountering Hui Chun Hall that he finally came back from the dead. Marquis Gu knew that this matter could not be resolved. Otherwise, why would they be called fraternal twins? The siblings were exactly the same when it came to opposing him. Marquis Gu put his hands on his hips and took a few deep breaths. When do you plan to return? If he insisted on staying, he would definitely succeed, right? But there had to be a time limit. Consort Shu was urging him. He had to bring people back to the capital by June at the latest. He could not allow the siblings to continue messing around. If he wants to go back, he will naturally go back. Gu Jiao did not mention herself because she had never thought of going back. Marquis Gu finally understood what was going on. This girl was stubborn. Was she going to go against him to the end? Forget it, forget it. He would let Yao Shi deal with this matter later. If she spoke, it would be easier to accept fraternal twins. Marquis Gu remembered his second reason for coming here. It's fine if you don't go back with me for now, but you must separate from that little cripple. Gu Jiao's chopping motion paused. Marquis Gu said, While the two of you have not consummated your marriage, you are still a virgin. When you return to the capital, say that you have never married. I will find you a good marriage. Dong. Gu Jiao chopped the axe into the wood. If he urged her to return to the capital with Gu Yan, she could still reluctantly treat it as a fart. But to ask her to separate from Xiao Lulang was too much. What kind of dog father would inquire about whether his daughter had consummated her marriage? Gu Jiao had actually misunderstood Marquis Gu. He only knew that she had the chastity mark on her face. But this was not important anymore. Gu Jiao was already angry. Marquis Gu was still prattling on, even listing a long list of famous young masters in the capital. But before he could finish, he saw Gu Jiao stand up with a cold expression. Marquis Gu felt his scalp tighten under Gu Jiao's death stare, and his hair stood on end. This girl, how could she have such a frightening gaze? You, what right do you have to interfere with my matters? Because I am your father. Then did you raise me? Did you raise me for even a day? Marquis Gu choked, and after a while he stammered, Isn't that because we carried the wrong child? Am I not back to make it up to you now? As long as you return with me, you will be the daughter of the Marquis. Your mother and I will dote on you. Gu Jiao sneered, You have no sincerity at all. Marquis Gu said unhappily, How am I not sincere? Gu Jiao said slowly. If you really want to take me back, then chase out that Gu Jinyu who has taken over my identity for more than 10 years. That is the sincerity you should have. Marquis Gu's face darkened. How can you say such vicious words? None of this is Jinyu's fault, but you want to blame it on her. To think that she keeps speaking up for you, saying that her illness is not because you bullied her. But look at yourself. How are you an elder sister? Gu Jiao said indifferently. I don't have a younger sister. You. Marquis Gu thought of how Jinyu always called her elder sister affectionately. Looking at this girl again, he felt that there was nothing good about her, and was thoroughly disappointing. I will not chase Jinyu away. Stop dreaming. Who cares? Gu Jiao chased him out and slammed the door shut. Huang Zhong was waiting at the entrance of the village for his marquis not to come, thinking that he might have ruined something again. He was about to go look for him when he saw his marquis coming over with his hand covering his nose. Marquis, what's wrong? He asked worriedly. Marquis Gu put down his hand covering his nose. Huang Zhong was stunned. You were beaten again? Why was his nose bleeding? And his nose was swollen? Isn't it because that girl slammed the door too quickly? He wanted to step in, but was slammed out by the door, and his nose was almost knocked crooked. Huang Zhong sighed. Can't you not make eldest miss angry? Marquis Gu glared at him. What do you mean I made her angry? It's clearly her who made me angry. Huang Zhong asked. How did she make you angry? Marquis Gu snorted. She actually shamelessly asked me to chase Jinyu out. Why is she so petty that she can't even tolerate a younger sister? Did Jinyu say anything when he found out that he had an elder sister? This was different. Second Miss was not his biological daughter, and she had taken over the identity of eldest Miss for so many years. It was good enough that she was not sent back to the main family. How could she complain? Second Miss was innocent, but wasn't eldest Miss the same? She suffered the hardships that Second Miss deserved, and Second Miss enjoyed the blessings that she deserved. Who would be happy? But Huang Zhong had followed the Marquis for many years and knew his character well. He was extremely rebellious in his bones and was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. The more he was not allowed to do something, the more he would do it to the end. On this point, the father and daughter were 100% alike. Huang Zhong sighed. Marquis, let's go back. Marquis Gu's gaze was dangerous. The matter has not been settled. How can I go back? Huang Zhong was speechless. No, you can't do anything to eldest Mississippi. I can't do anything to her. But that doesn't mean I can't do anything to others. Marquis Gu said coldly. Let's go to the academy. Class had just ended at the academy. Xiao Lulang came out of Qianxiang Academy and was about to go to the private school to pick up little Jingkong. Marquis Gu called over the academy servant and asked him to point out who was Xiao Lulang. The servant pointed. It's him. Marquis Gu looked at Xiao Lulang, and with just one glance, his eyeballs almost fell out. Wasn't this the young man that he met on the way out of the village and looked similar to Zhao Du's young Marquis? How could it be him? Marquis Gu and Zhao Du's young Marquis had not met much, mainly because there was no interaction between the two manors. Although they were both Marquis manors, Marquis Xianping's rank was higher than Marquis Ding An's. Marquis Xianping was a true first-grade Marquis. He had power and influence, wealth that could rival a country, and he dominated the capital. Marquis Xianping's younger sister was the current Empress Xiao. When his own sister, Consort Shu, saw her, she had no choice but to perform the etiquette of a concubine. A son from such a family was definitely worthy of being called a favored son of heaven. His birth was already so outstanding, but he still did not disappoint. When he was 12 or 13 years old, he became the young chancellor of the Imperial College. His magnificence did not lose to his biological father, Marquis Xianping. Unfortunately, heaven was jealous of such talents. Marquis Gu looked at Xiao Lulang again. This time, he did not feel that they were similar. Zhao Du's young Marquis was a pure and kind young man. He was gentle like jade, and his eyes always held a clean and beautiful smile. Xiao Liulang's eyes were too cold, and his heart was dark. Marquis Gu narrowed his eyes unhappily. At this time, Xiao Lulang came closer. The servant waved at him. Xiao Lulang. Someone is looking for you. Xiao Lulang glanced at Marquis Gu and stopped in his tracks. Marquis Gu did not insist on waiting for him to come over. He walked over himself and looked at Xiao Lulang with disdain. You are Xiao Lulang? Xiao Lulang looked at him calmly. What is it? Marquis Gu gave Huang Zhong a look. Huang Zhong took out a stack of banknotes. Marquis Gu said arrogantly, Leave my daughter, and these banknotes are yours. Xiao Lulang did not even look at the banknotes. He said expressionlessly, Isn't this too little? Marquis Gu raised his chin and said, 5,000 taels is enough for you to squander for a few lifetimes. You can also marry a few beauties and live a carefree life for the rest of your life. Don't think that your future is limitless just because you took the first 2 exams. I have seen many people like you, but not many of them can really make it to the court examination. If you are unlucky, you will fail the provincial examination. How much effort did the aristocratic families spend to raise their children? There was no lack of intelligent and diligent students among them. How could these poor students compare to them? Even if they were lucky enough to enter the capital, did they really think they could make a name for themselves? Perhaps the provincial examination was still a competition of strength, but the higher you went, the more influence you had. Every year, the top 3 were born from the candidates of the major powers in the capital. How much of this was due to the emperor's helplessness, and how much of it was due to unspeakable political struggles? This was something that Xiao Lulang and the other poor and pedantic bookworms could never imagine. Studying could turn a group of small shrimps into small fish, but it was impossible for a carp to leap over the dragon's gate. Marquis Gu looked at Xiao Lulang and said, People are destined to be rich and poor from birth. You are not fit to be my son-in-law. Know your place and take these banknotes and disappear from my sight. If you think it is too little, I can add a bit more for you. Huang Zhong. Huang Zhong took out another 1,000 taels of banknotes. Xiao Lulang smiled coldly. Marquis Gu, have you forgotten something? What? Marquis Gu asked. Xiao Yolang's lips curled. She is still not your daughter. Heart-wrenching. Marquis Gu's arrogance froze. Xiao Lulang lightly mocked. If you are referring to the daughter you already have, then there is no need. I have no interest in the daughter you have raised by your side since childhood. Even if you give me 5,000 taels of gold, I won't even look at her. What kind of disdainful tone was this? Wasn't this brat too arrogant? Did he know how many people in the capital wanted to marry Jinyu? They were all young masters who were thousands of times more outstanding than him. No, now was not the time to be angry about this. He had almost been led astray by this brat. Marquis Gu clenched his fists, planning to teach this brat a lesson. Huang Zhong. Huang Zhong. Where was he? Where did he die to? Marquis Gu turned around, wanting to see where Huang Zhong went. But suddenly, a slender hand reached out from behind him, grabbing his collar and dragging him into a side alley. Half an hour later, Gu Jiao calmly walked out of the alley. Xiao Lulang looked at her strangely. She clapped her hands, revealing a gentle smile. Sorry for making you wait. We have finished communicating. He won't bother you anymore. Marquis Gu, who had been communicated, sat in the corner of the alley like a puppet with its strings cut. His body that had lost consciousness from the pain helplessly leaned against the wall. Beside him, Huang Zhong had also become a soulless puppet. Both of them had lifeless expressions. Their faces were bruised and swollen. Their noses were crooked and their mouths were slanted. It was a tragic sight. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels to read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_896428226/115447491. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg. Biku Go Mobile Reading Website. MZHHBQG. Com. Chapter 104. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. It was already late at night when Marquis Gu and Huang Zhong limped back to the villa. They wanted to go back earlier, but they couldn't move for a few hours. Gu Jinyu saw the two of them covered in injuries and wondered, "Father, bodyguard Huang, what happened to you?" Marquis Gu was too ashamed to tell the truth, so he said sullenly, "We had a car accident." Gu Jinyu was stunned. What happened to the carriage? Why was there a car accident? Marquis Gu glanced at Huang Zhong. Huang Zhong drove under the influence. Huang Zhong. He was in the house, but trouble fell from the sky. Gu Jinyu frowned. "Bodyguard Huang, why did you drink?" Huang Zhong glanced at Marquis Gu. "Marquis Gu asked me to drink." Marquis Gu. It was the end of April and Tianxiang Academy's holidays were coming. Gu Xiaoshun, who had stayed in the dormitory for many days, could finally go home. Even though he wasn't in the village, he was very clear about what was happening at home. To be exact, as long as little Jinkong knew about it, he knew about it too. The main reason was that after little Jinkong went to the private school, the three of them would have lunched together every day. Little Jinkong's private school provided lunch, but there was lard in the food, so little Jinkong couldn't eat it. Xiao Lulang could only bring him out to eat. They were all younger brothers, so there was no reason to bring only one. Little Jinkong was a quiet child in the private school, but in front of Gu Xiaoshun, he immediately turned into a loudspeaker and told him everything that happened at home. When he first heard that Gu Jiao had carried the wrong child, Gu Xiaoshun was shocked beyond words. When he heard that the young master of the Marquis Gu's residence directly moved into the house, Gu Xiaoshun was so shocked that his head almost fell off. Little Jinkong was obviously displeased with Gu Yan, who suddenly appeared at home to compete with him for favor. His tone was full of helplessness. However, it's not like there's nothing to be happy about. You have your own room now. You can live at home in the future. Gu Xiaoshun quickly became happy. No, he had been quite happy. Gu Xiaoshun was not a child who knew how to fight for favor. His mind was neither sensitive nor meticulous. He simply could not react when others were jealous of him. Perhaps it had something to do with the environment he grew up in. He had always been the one who was neglected by his family. His heart gradually became numb, and he did not develop the possessiveness of little Jinkong and Gu Yan. Because of this, little Jinkong was very receptive to Gu Xiaoshun. After arriving home, Gu Xiaoshun met Gu Yan. Wow, little Jinkong had been complaining about Gu Yan for the past few days. He had never said that Gu Yan was so good-looking. Gu Xiaoshun was stunned. With Gu Xiaoshun's silly look, it was obvious that he was not someone who could compete with him. Gu Yan had a judgment in his heart. He was not so repulsed by Gu Xiaoshun. Although he was jealous of Gu Xiaoshun growing up with Gu Jiao, he was also grateful that he had accompanied Gu Jiao during her most lonely days. He had even been beaten up for Gu Jiao. This was a strong friendship. Gu Yan patted Gu Xiaoshun's shoulder very loyally. Before he could say, "From now on, we are brothers," he felt his palm go numb. Damn it. Was this silly guy's shoulder made of iron? It was so hard. The pampered baby Gu's palms immediately turned red. Gu Jiao went to get water. "Jiao Jiao, I'll go too." Little Jinkong immediately took out his small carrying pole and small wooden bucket. He carried them and went to get water with Gu Jiao. Gu Yan also wanted to go. In fact, he could only carry little Jinkong's small carrying pole and small wooden bucket. But that was too embarrassing, wasn't it? Gu Yan tried to grab the wooden bucket next to the water tank with both hands, but he could not grab it for a long time. Gu Xiaoshun said, "I'll do it." Gu Yan asked, "You'll help me get water?" Gu Xiaoshun thought, "I just want a bucket to get water myself. But since you said so, I'll do it." Gu Xiaoshun helped Gu Yan to get water. He grew up being ordered around by Mrs. Liu. He had no place to use his strength, so he could only fetch water with a swishing sound. Guyan watched as Gu Xiaoshun poured buckets after buckets of water into the vat, and the corners of her lips curled up in satisfaction. Gu Xiaoshun helped him to get water. It was his. Guyan suddenly found Gu Xiaoshun more pleasing to the eye. When they were eating at the table, he and little Jing Kong waited for Gu Jiao to pick up food for them. There was only one sweet potato ball left. Xiaoshun can give it to me, he said generously. Okay. Little Jing Kong nodded seriously. He had no objection. After the meal, Gu Jiao cut a plate of fresh fruits and ate until there was only one piece left. Gu Jiao was most afraid of this kind of situation, so she usually calculated before giving out food. But Gu Xiaoshun came back today, so the rhythm of eating was disrupted. If it was in the past, they would argue about who should get the last piece of Jiao Jiao. But today, give it to Xiaoshun. He hasn't been at home these days, so he should eat more. Gu Yan said generously again. Little Jing Kong nodded. He still had no objection. Gu Xiaoshun felt that Gu Yan was quite good. He was not like what little Jing Kong said. As a reciprocal gift, he should show more concern for him. Gu Xiaoshun looked at Gu Yan and said, "Are you used to living home?" He said, "At home." This word successfully pleased Gu Yan. Gu Yan smiled, "I'm used to living here. Our rooms are very close to each other. They could communicate more. You live at the back." Gu Xiaoshun and Gu Yan were thinking about different things. When I'm not here, who do you play with? Gu Yan was stunned by this question. Gu Xiaoshun continued, "What do you do during the day?" That's right. What did Gu Yan do during the day? Gu Jiao was busy with the mountain affairs recently. She was rarely at home during the day. If she was at home, Gu Yan would stick to her. What if she was not at home? When little Jing Kong was at home, Gu Jiao was not worried about what he did during the day. He was a child with a good plan. He had a full day. Moreover, there were many children of the same age in the village. Little Jing Kong could go and play with them. Old Madam was often at home alone. However, Gu Jiao was not worried about her at all. She could tease Go Hua, talk to Xuanningshang's mother-in-law, or tell the villagers to play. Her life was more exciting than Gu Jiao's. Gu Yan was a very antisocial person. It was difficult for him to get along with the young people in the village. He had been here for several days, but he did not even go out of the door. He was a person who was waiting for death since he was born. He was not like little Jing Kong, who would find things for himself to do. It was not that he did not want to find things, but there were many things that he could not do. He was most afraid of the sudden silence. Gu Xiaoshun did not feel the tense atmosphere at all. Aren't you bored? First kill. You can go and find Ju Zi and the others during the day. But you are so soft and tender. You won't be able to play with them. Second kill. We don't have any land for you to plant. Third kill. You can't help me with the work. You can't do all the heavy work. Fourth kill. Oh right. You are so good-looking. Why don't you go to school? Fifth kill. Gu Yan slumped on the back of the chair, soullessly. What does being good-looking have to do with studying? I treated you as my brother, but you turned around and stabbed me in the back. Gu Yan did not expect this to happen even in his dreams. He hated studying. When he was in Ho Fu and the mountain villa, his family had invited a tutor for him, but he was either late or left early. Otherwise, he would fall asleep during class. He was not in good health. The tutor did not dare to scold him. He could not control him. In the end, he simply gave up. There was a tutor who stayed in the mountain villa, but the tutor only taught him for less than 10 days a year. In Gu Xiaoshun's words, he was a slacker. Gu Yan looked at Gu Jiao with grievance. He wanted to tell her with his eyes. He did not want to go to school. No. Gu Jiao did not object to Gu Yan going to school in Little Jing Kong. Naturally, she would not object to Gu Yan going to school now. Moreover, Gu Yan's condition was very stable now. Studying was not a problem. She could unconditionally tolerate other things, but there was no discussion about going to school. Gu Jiao automatically ignored Gu Yan's little eyes. You are old enough. It's time for you to go to school. Gu Yan roared in his heart, No. I am still a baby. Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang seriously discussed Gu Yan's school matters. Gu Jiao said, I still hope that he can stay with you as much as possible. This way, you can take care of each other. The private schools in Qianxiang Academy and Little Jingkong are both good. Private school. Xiao Lulang said after thinking about it. Qianxiang Academy was not easy to enter. Xiao Lulang could ask Dean Li to open the back door for him. However, after entering the academy was the key. The students in Qianxiang Academy were all very basic. They were at least scholars. Most of them were scholars. Their learning progress was very fast. The atmosphere was also very tense. Gu Xiaoshun was an exception. He was simple-minded and unaffected. However, Gu Yan was not necessarily so. Gu Jiao also preferred private school. She looked at Little Jingkong. How is your private school? Little Jingkong said with a serious face. It's very good. The teachers are both virtuous and talented. Their lectures are very exciting. The teachers who wished they could be scolded by Little Jingkong 3 to 5 times a day. The overall standard of the private school was not as high as Qianxiang Academy. However, at the same time, the learning pressure was not as great as Qianxiang Academy. It was suitable for Gu Yan, who could not survive in a high-pressure environment. Gu Jiao felt that this arrangement was perfect. What do you think? Gu Jiao looked at Gu Yan and asked. Can I refuse? Baby Gu asked weakly. If Marquis Gu arranged for him to study, he would have torn up all the old man's antique paintings. However, he could not be angry with Gu Jiao. He loved her so much. How could he be angry with her? Gu Jiao thought for a while and nodded. Then let's change the question. Will I send you to school tomorrow, or will your brother-in-law send you to school? Baby Gu, you send me to school. There seemed to be something wrong. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1154114220. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 105. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. Gu Jiao made a school bag for Gu Yan overnight. At dawn the next day, Gu Yan was packed up by his sister and sent to Luo Dazhuang's bullock cart. Xiao Lulang asked Gu Xiaoshun to go to the academy to ask for an hour's leave for him. Then he and Gu Jiao sent Gu Yan and Little Jingkong to the private school. Xiao Lulang paid the money and went through the admission procedures. Little Jingkong asked Gu Yan, who was waiting in the corridor, "Which class do you think you will be in?" Gu Yan snorted with a cold face. "Anyway, I won't be in the same class as you." Little Jingkong studied elementary school. Gu Yan was already 14 years old. Of course, it was impossible for him to enter the elementary school class. He was assigned to Teacher Chang's class. The students in the class were about his age and had some foundation in the 4 books and 5 classics. Gu Yan was somewhat satisfied with the assignment. However, before he could sit down, Teacher Chang brought in another new student. There was an empty seat beside Gu Yan. Teacher Chang let the new student sit beside Gu Yan. Gu Yan looked at the 3-headed little monk beside him. His eyes widened. Why are you in this class?" Little Jingkong spread his hands. "I skipped a grade." Gu Yan, how could this work? Gu Yan's days began. He couldn't lose to a little monk, especially a little monk who was competing with him for favor. If the little monk could skip a grade, then so could he. Humph. Gu Yan, who had been eating and waiting for death, became serious for the first time. The two secret guards were confused. They had been assigned by the old marquis to stay by the little young master's side for several years. It could be said that they had a clear understanding of the little young master's character. But why did the little young master seem to have changed into a different person after acknowledging his sister? Can you believe that he has actually started studying? After completing the topographic map, Gu Jiao began to plan for the reclamation of the wasteland. She marked out on the map where the medicinal fields were to be cultivated, where the crops were to be planted, and where the ponds were to be built. This mountain started from the back of Luo's second uncle's house. It was shaped like a small mountain range, with one big mountaintop and 4 small mountaintops. Halfway up the first small mountaintop, there was an open space. What should we do with that empty space? Ever since Marquis Gu's threat to divorce the two failed, he did not come again. Instead, it was Yao Shi who came a few times. Each time, she would bring some pastries that she had personally made. The old lady liked it very much. Yao Shi also brought a few sets of clothes that she had personally made for Gu Jiao. She knew that Gu Jiao needed to work, so her sleeping clothes were made of the finest silk. Her daytime clothes were mostly made of durable cotton. Nurse Fang did not quite understand her actions. Since eldest young miss is living a hard life, just give her more money. Why make clothes that even the maidservants would wear? Yao Shi only smiled when she heard this. Jiao Jiao does not need my money. Yao Shi had spent her entire life in the inner residence, living a life of dependence on men. Everyone thought that she should be like this. She herself also thought so, until she met her daughter. She felt that her daughter had lived the life she wanted. It was not money, but freedom. Ever since Yao Shi was rejected the first time, she did not mention anything about living here. She also did not force Gu Jiao to call her mother. She only came to see Gu Jiao, and then let Gu Jiao treat her illness. After she finished her medicine, Gu Jiao gave her another 4 boxes. Gu Jiao interacted with Yao Shi as a doctor, so they were quite comfortable. Nurse Fang also came. She apologized to Gu Jiao for offending Gu Jiao earlier. The apology was sincere, but she still had some complaints about some of Gu Jiao's actions. She thought that Gu Jiao should go back with Yao Shi and properly show filial piety to Yao Shi and support her status as the eldest young miss. Because Gu Yan went to school, Yao Shi and Nurse Fang did not see him several times. However, there was one time when Gu Yan and little Jing Kong's private school was on holiday, and Yao Shi finally saw her son that she had not seen for a long time. Then, Yao Shi discovered that her son had gained weight. Yao Shi was so excited that she almost cried. Even in her dreams, she did not expect that her seriously ill son would grow into a little bun. Gu Yan was still not considered fat, but his original face was too thin, and his cheeks were sunken. Now, there was baby fat on his cheeks, and he looked like a cute round little bun face. Yao Shi could not help but pinch it. It felt so good. Gu Jiao nodded in agreement. She pinched it every day, so it felt so good. After getting on the carriage, Yao Shi cried with joy and said to Nurse Fang, "See, it was the right decision to let Yan stay here, right?" Nurse Fang could not refute. Yes, the young master has put on weight, and his complexion is much better. In the past, Gu Yan would get angry every few days in the residence. He would not eat properly or sleep well. Yao Shi could only coax him and could not force him. After coming here, Gu Yan's bad temper calmed down a lot. He also had his own friends and playmates, Gu Xiaoshun, who killed him 5 times, and little Jing Kong, who learned how to hang and beat him. Mother. When Yao Shi's carriage arrived at the courtyard, Gu Jinyu had been pacing back and forth at the entrance for a long time. Yao Shi pulled her hand and used a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from her forehead. "Have you been waiting for me here the whole time? The sun is so strong. Aren't you afraid of getting burned?" Gu Jinyu did not sunbathe in the past, afraid that she would not look good if she got tanned. Gu Jinyu smiled sweetly. "I missed you, mother. How was it? Did meeting elder sister and younger brother go smoothly?" And your younger brother's private school is on holiday today. I saw him and Jiao Jiao. They are both doing well. When Yao Shi said this, she could not hide the smile in her eyes. Gu Jinyu could not help but be dazed for a moment. She could not remember how long it had been since she had seen her mother so happy. What's wrong? Yao Shi sensed her daughter's absent-mindedness. Gu Jinyu returned to her senses and smiled. I also want to see them. When elder sister is no longer angry at me, I will go and visit her. Yao Shi said sincerely, she is not angry at you. You have misunderstood her. She is not a petty person. She is just used to her current life and does not wish to be disturbed. Gu Jinyu bowed. Yes, daughter should not make such assumptions about elder sister. Yao Shi smiled and let go of her hand to enter the room. Gu Jinyu's eyes flickered and she followed. Madam, the clothes for young miss have been dried. A young servant girl walked over with a set of soft silk pajamas. Gu Jinyu smiled in surprise and reached out to take the pajamas. Is this for me? After unfolding it, she realized that the size was not right. Her pajamas were not this long. Her fingers tightened. The young servant girl had not noticed her earlier and only saw her now. She was so embarrassed that her face turned white. The young servant girl did not know whether to take it or not. Gu Jinyu smiled. Mother, my clothes are too long. You should let elder sister wear them. Yao Shi had originally made the pajamas for Gu Jiao, but Gu Jinyu had already said so. If she told the truth, it would put the child in a difficult position. She warmly said, then mother will make a new set for you. To be honest, she had not made clothes for Gu Jinyu in a long time. The main reason was that the clothes she made could not keep up with the trends in the capital. Gu Jinyu found them old-fashioned and did not like to wear them. Gu Jinyu affectionately held Yao Shi's arm. As long as mother makes it, Jinyu will wear it every day. Gu Jinyu stayed in Yao Shi's courtyard for dinner. Marquis Gu also came over. He had only recovered today after being beaten up. He was too embarrassed to say that he had been beaten by a servant girl, so he could only slander Huang Zhong for being drunk and causing the carriage to get into an accident. After dinner, Gu Jinyu had the servant girl carry a large box over. Yao Shi asked, what is this for? Gu Jinyu warmly said, this is a gift I chose for elder sister. I don't know what elder sister likes, so I prepared some of everything. Yao Shi had the servant girl take away the food and open the box. The items inside were laid out one by one. There were jewelry, antiques, calligraphy, and paintings, needles, and embroidery. It could be seen that he had put in a lot of effort. Everything was not ordinary. But the most eye-catching item was still a guqin. Yao Shi opened the box. When she saw the quaint 5-stringed guqin inside, her breathing stopped. Jinyu, this is? Gu Jinyu smiled and nodded. That's right, this is the lunar shadow, Fushi guqin. This was not an ordinary guqin. It was a gift from His Majesty. There was only one in the entire country of Zhao. The real antique Fushi guqin had been lost in the previous dynasty. This guqin had come from Qin dynasty's top guqin master, Lunar Shadow. It was the most successful imitation of the Fushi guqin to date, so it was also called the Lunar Shadow Fushi guqin. Gu Jinyu had once played the guqin in Imperial Concubine Shu's palace and had been heard by His Majesty. His Majesty praised her skill in the guqin, second only to the future wife of the third prince. The future wife of the third prince was the most talented woman in the country of Zhao. She had studied the guqin for 17 years and had lived longer than Gu Jinyu. His Majesty felt that Gu Jinyu's talent was rare and bestowed the Lunar Shadow Fushi guqin to Gu Jinyu. Yao Shi felt that this was inappropriate. How can you give such a valuable thing to someone else? Gu Jinyu smiled sweetly. It's fine. His Majesty said that if he gave it to me, it's mine. I can do whatever I want with it. Yao Shi shook her head. What I mean is that it's too valuable. Marquis Gu was in complete agreement. That's right. Also, that girl Ahem, your elder sister doesn't know the guqin. Wasn't giving it to her for nothing? What a waste. Gu Jinyu hugged the guqin in his arms and lowered his eyes in grievance. But this is the best thing that Jinyu can offer. Jinyu likes sister and wants to make it up to sister. Jinyu can't wait to give sister my life. What's a mere guqin worth? Yao sure tucked a few strands of hair behind her ear and sighed. Silly child. In the end, Yao sure did not want the guqin. She kept everything else and would give it to Jiao Jiao another day. If Jiao Jiao liked it, she could keep it. If not, she would bring it back. Jinyu hugged the guqin and returned to her courtyard. Marquis Gu caught up to her and solemnly said, "Don't do this kind of thing in the future." What? Jinyu looked at her father in confusion. Marquis Gu glanced at the guqin in her arms and said, "Aren't you afraid that your mother would really accept it?" Jinyu's eyes widened and dazedly said, "I originally wanted to give it to elder sister. Unfortunately, mother didn't want it." Marquis Gu let out a long sigh. "Fortunately, your mother didn't want it." Your elder sister grew up in the countryside and doesn't know music. She only knows how to make rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea. Giving something like this to her is a waste. Jinyu's eyes were sincere as she said, "If elder sister is willing, I can teach elder sister." Marquis Gu snorted coldly. "That depends on whether she appreciates it." "All right, keep the lunar shadow Fushi guqin well. Don't take it out and give it away casually." Jinyu lowered her eyes. No one could make a better imitation of the Fushi guqin. She never intended to give it away. The private school was on holiday, but Tianxiang Academy wasn't. Gu Jiao was cooking dinner in the kitchen. She calculated that Xiao Lulang and Gu Xiaoshan should be arriving at the entrance of the village, so she started to cook the last dish. "Jiao Jiao Jiao Jiao. My abacus is missing." Little Jing Kong ran into the kitchen helplessly. Gu Jiao filled the pot with water and covered it with a lid. "Don't worry, I'll help you look for it." Little Jing Kong brought back many things from the temple. Gu Jiao placed them in 2 large boxes for him. Although he was a child, Gu Jiao still respected his privacy and wouldn't touch his things. His boxes were very messy and had all sorts of things. "Which box is it in?" Gu Jiao asked. "This one." "No, it seems to be this one." Although little Jing Kong was a very well-planned child, he was still not very good at organizing things. Gu Jiao rummaged through the box on the left and soon found a shiny golden abacus. It was made of pure gold. Gu Jiao asked in a daze, "It's this?" "Yes." Little Jing Kong nodded his head like he was pounding garlic. Gu Jiao asked, "Who gave it to you?" "Master." Little Jing Kong took the abacus and started tapping it. He had an abacus lesson today, so he had to revise. Was his master so rich? He actually gave him a golden abacus? Gu Jiao couldn't help but ask, "Do you know that it's made of gold?" Little Jing Kong nodded. "Yes, I know. Master has many abacuses, so I specially picked this one." "Why?" "It's beautiful." Gu Jiao didn't know what to say. Gu Jiao put the things on the ground into the abacus, one by one. When she picked up a big object wrapped in a rag, she suddenly heard the sound of a string. Gu Jiao opened it and found that it was a guqin. It was very shabby and didn't even have a case, but the sound was good. The sound just now was very pleasant. Gu Jiao plucked it again. The sound was really good. Little Jing Kong looked at Gu Jiao. "Oh, Jiao Jiao, do you know how to play the guqin?" Gu Jiao didn't answer his question, but asked him, "Do you know how to play?" Little Jing Kong thought seriously. "I know a little, but I don't like it." Gu Jiao didn't understand. Why is there a guqin if you don't like it? Little Jing Kong sighed like a little adult. "Sigh, it's a gift from Master. The things inside were all given by him." Gu Jiao found that there was a blackened spot on the upper right corner of the guqin. Little Jing Kong explained, "There was a time when there was no more firewood, so Master threw the guqin in to burn it. But it didn't burn for a long time, so he took it out again." Gu Jiao was stunned. Even if it was a broken guqin, it shouldn't be used as firewood to burn it, right? "What kind of master did you have?" Little Jing Kong said, "Jiao Jiao, if you like it, I'll give it to you." Gu Jiao stroked the guqin in her hand and inadvertently glanced at the 2 words engraved on the bottom of the guqin, Fushi. Digression, Invisible Little Nouveau Riche, Little Jing Congo asterisk, asterisk. Oh, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/115408760. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.